Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight our guest is Terry Lovelace. If you don't remember, we had him on before. I believe we just got him on Google Hangouts. It looks like we are. Awesome. We were having technical difficulties before we got him on here, but it looks like we do, so good. But Terry Lovelace, author of Incident at Devil's Den. He is an alien abductee. He's had numerous experiences, mostly, I would say, not pleasant. And he has lots of evidence to prove it. He's one of the most credible alien abduction experiences I've ever read. I read his book. I was enthralled by it. It brought up memories of my own experiences I had on my own camping trip once that I just put away. But his book really made me start to think about it and scare the living heck out of me. So that's going to be a great show. And last time we didn't have the phone lines open. We had Heather Wade on, and we didn't have as much of a showtime then. We have a little more showtime now. So we might take some phone calls later in the show. But there's a lot to Terry's story we didn't get to last time. I want to make sure we get to it now. And of course, what we do every Sunday night is the World Wide Web of Weird, and we got a lot of weird to cover. So let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup, and I say that with, like, one of those nights when the show really, like, I've been looking forward to it, but then things happen, like daylight savings time. Yeah, I'm going to pull an Art Bell here and gripe about daylight savings time. Man, it really blows. It always happens right before the show, throws my sleep off. I have to be up early to take my kid to school as it is, so my sleep's been thrown off completely. So if I'm a little whacked on the show tonight, it's because I got no sleep. That and a dang tickle in my throat kept me up all night, and still there. It's driving me nuts. So we got that, and we have had a little bit of technical difficulties before the show. Hopefully we got it all working. We got Terry here. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and bring up our panel of people and see who we got. We got Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie? My lovely co-host.
Doing great. Really excited to have Terry back.
Me too. You know, I've been counting down the days of this one. And from St. Augustine, Florida, we got Rob Autry himself. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Pretty good. How's everybody?
You're really low. Volume really, really low.
How about that?
Much better. Good.
Much better. Doing good.
I don't think I have any Florida stories for you tonight. I don't think the one I'm thinking of is from Florida. Yeah, no Florida.
Can dig up one with no problem.
I'm sure. I do pass up some because I'm like, this is just human garbage. It's just everyday news for Florida. So just move on.
Exactly. Take something special to make the news now.
Yep. Then we got Jeffrey Chan running the World Wide Web of Weird, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But we do have our guest with us. It is working Terry Lovelace. How you doing tonight, Terry? You're muted. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's make sure we got you on. Got to hit the unmute button. There you go.
There we go. How's the volume?
Let me turn my background music here so I can hear you. Make sure.
Yeah, how's the volume? Is it okay?
I think it's going to work. How do you guys hear him? You hear him all right, Jamie, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I hear him.
Okay.
Hi, Jamie. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
How's it going, Terry?
Good to see you.
Good to be here. I've been looking forward to this too. This is fun.
The only other thing I would say while we're doing the World Wide Web of Weird, maybe if you have a mic, an external mic, might help.
I do.
I would get that while we're doing the World Wide Web. Go to mute yourself and look for that so we maybe can get better audio. We'll try that when we come back from the commercial break.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Okay, speaking of that, what we do every Sunday night is the World Wide Web of Weird, and we got some weirds. Let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we talked about this, I don't know, a couple months ago about Elon Musk when he was on the Joe Rogan show smoking a blunt. And that there were some critics and talking about taking away his some of his government cheese for his projects. Well, this is from FoxBusiness.com. Elon Musk's SpaceX plans may go up in smoke as Pentagon investigation of pot smoking nears end. For those listening on Paranormal Soup's radio network, yes, we are also on internet radio. We are also a webcast. You can watch us at our Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup Facebook page or on YouTube at our Paranormal Soup YouTube channel. We are a webcast, but I try to narrate these stories as best I can. So Elon Musk's SpaceX plans may go up in smoke as Pentagon investigation of pot smoking nears end. Tesla CEO Elon Musk may lose security clearances after smoking marijuana on a podcast. FBN's Charles Gasparino discusses how Elon Musk may lose his U.S. security clearance after the Tesla CEO smoked pot on the podcast with comedian Joe Rogan. Could Elon Musk's dreams of starting a space colony on Mars soon be up in smoke? The Department of Defense is weighing whether to suspend or revoke the tech entrepreneur's security clearance for SpaceX private venture that launches spy satellites for the federal government following an incident last year where he smoked marijuana cigarettes during an appearance on a comedian's podcast. I hear you, Terry. You got a buzzing coming from your end, I think. Is that your mic? I think it might be a buzzing from the laptop, maybe. I don't know. Hold on one second. You there, Terry? I say something. Oh, I don't think he hears me. Nope. There goes the buzzing. Sorry, we didn't get to do a sound check before. We had some issues, so we're just got him on now. So we're going to kind of worldwide weird and a little bit of sound test. All right, we'll see if he comes back. I know he's not muted, but yeah. Let's hope not.
Just saying.
But you know, I think just to cut to the short of this, I think it's really, really crummy. Yeah, I mean, so what if he did? So what? Who cares? Just
The
to me,
dude's smarter than most anybody that's criticizing him. He's more successful than anybody that's criticizing him.
Why? Because it's illegal. It's because it's illegal federally. Well, screw your illegality of it because it shouldn't be.
Exactly.
It's just like somebody sitting down and having a drink on a podcast.
Except that would
he
be
works
worse.
his butt off. If he wants to relax and unwind that way,
Yeah.
he's responsible, obviously.
We just lost Terry. Hopefully we get him back on. Otherwise, I'll try him on the phone when we come back from the commercial break. Like I said, we didn't get to do a sound test, and that's always required for Google Hangouts. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Let's just say, when you said like sitting down and having a drink, last night at one of my band gigs, there was a big, huge table of people that were all drinking. There was another table over in the back. They were smoking some weed. The table that was drinking got in a big, huge fight and had the cops called on them. People that were smoking weed just chilled out and watched the whole thing.
And if you asked anybody with common sense how that scenario was going to play out, everybody would have told you without knowing what happened. That's exactly what would happen.
Yep.
And wasn't he in California when he was doing that?
Yeah, but it's federally illegal. Yeah, it's a bunch of crap. All right, let's move on. because I want to make sure we get through this so we can get back to the commercial break and hopefully get Terry on one way or the other. We will get Terry on. All right. Stockton man caught on camera pouring diesel fuel on neighbor's door. Did I pick the right article? Hold on. Is this number 2? Yes, it is number 2. Sorry. Paranoid, I picked the wrong article. That's how my night's going. All right. Stockton man caught on camera pouring diesel fuel on neighbor's doorstep trying to light it. From Fox40News.com. Stockton, a woman... This is from Stockton. A woman and her family are shaken up after a neighbor poured fuel all over her front door before trying to set it on fire. The Stockton woman, and for people listening, we're watching a video right now. This guy dumping kerosene on their doorstep here, trying to set it on fire. The Stockton woman, who didn't want to be identified, told Fox 40 the incident was caught on her home's doorbell camera. We're having so much fun with those doorbell cameras. Around 2:30 a.m. Thursday near Dominion Drive. The smell of the fuel lingered in the air around the home hours after it was cleaned up. The family says the porch and door were scrubbed several times. The family said they ignored the notification because most of the time they received notifications of just insects flying by the camera. When the woman's mother checked the footage 2 hours later, she saw her neighbor, identified as 38-year-old Kunang Pham, pouring what appeared to be fuel all over her front door before trying to light it. Pham can be heard panting in the video. When the fire department officers arrived, investigators found approximately 2 gallons of diesel fuel were poured by Pham. Investigators told the family if it had been gas, Pham would have killed himself and their family inside the home. There were a few adults and 2 children ages 3 and 10 home at the time of the incident. Okay, this is from the lady. Okay, we're going to blow up any minute. Do I go get the kids? Do we take off? Or is he outside waiting for us? The woman said. Officers arrested Pham, who lives across the street, for attempted homicide and arson. The woman told Fox 40 Pham told police that he saw a ghost and was trying to get rid of it. Really. Pham also said he has no problems with the family and he'd like to apologize. They'd like you to move. This isn't the first time Pham was caught on this family's doorbell camera. On March 1st, he was seen ringing at the family's doorbell like crazy while pacing back and forth. Man, this is why I say I'm more afraid of people than ghosts.
Yeah, I'd take the doorbell licker over this guy.
Yeah.
At least, he wasn't trying to kill him. He was just licking the doorbell.
I'm sorry, I'm texting Terry. He did have issues with Hangouts. He couldn't even hear us. So I'm going to call him after the commercial case and let him know. Letting him know now. Sorry, guys, some technical difficulties.
This guy should be removed from the planet, not just the neighborhood.
Right. Sorry, not on radio silence. Just trying to text and do this. Letting him know so he doesn't panic. So there we go. Okay, so the next one is implantable brain chips could soon give people super intelligence. I've seen this on the news. I've seen everybody talking about this, good and bad and fearful. And it's just what is coming. I hate to say it, and I'm not for it. I see Terry now in the Google Hangouts. We'll see how it works here in a second. But this is from mindsunleashed.com. An idea long restricted to the realm of science fiction could soon be going live within the next 5 years. The idea, a plan to augment human brains with a technology upgrade that grants superintelligence to those who can afford it. Enter the brain chip, a concept that could vastly increase the gap between those considered elite and, the rest of us. Dr. Moran Cerf, a neuroscientist and business professor at Northwestern University, is working alongside some of Silicon Valley's top names who actually remain nameless at the moment to make implantable smart chips for your brain a reality. Speaking to CBS Chicago, Cerf explained the brain chips, which are largely a conceptual stage, that means they haven't figured it out, would make it so that it has an internet connection and goes to Wikipedia. When I think this particular thought, it gives me the answer. Well,
I got an answer.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No.
Hell no.
I've seen a few like science fiction outer limits things like in the 90s and 2000 that covered this. Once people started thinking this idea, and none of it was good. Actually, there was a really good Sliders episode, if I remember right, that covered this too. It's not a good idea, I don't think, to be putting chips in our brain. It's not meant to be. I really don't think we could do it. Only reason I would be maybe for them experimenting is helping somebody maybe with Alzheimer's. Or people that need help, disability. But there's no reason to be upgrading and messing with something like this. Really, really shouldn't be doing it. And it will become a class war. I'm just saying, because it'll be super expensive, and the only people who have this ability will be the really rich and snotty. that'll be like, well, Wikipedia says, Snopes says. Yeah, where are they going to be getting their information from? The internet. They're not going to get any smarter. They're going to get dumber.
Exactly.
And they're not going to be creative people.
And then they're going to get hacked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What if they get hacked? Yeah, your computer chip in your brain has a virus. You're going to die in like 2 weeks or in 2 minutes. I don't know. You pay our ransomware.
It's just a failure.
Yeah. It's scary. It's scary. All right, let's move on. Loch Ness, haven't done one of those in a little while. It's from the ScottishSun.co.uk. Monster Madness. Loch Ness monster hunters go wild as legendary beast Nessie is spotted twice in 5 days. We got 2 photos here, both very blurry and crummy. One really bad because it's from a webcam. Lisa Brennan and Owen Fotohagen. I totally probably butchered that. That's my best guess. Claimed to have spotted the world-famous monster in space of less than a week apart. A woman from Manchester claims to have spotted the photograph of the creature on February 23rd. That's the one you see to the left. This is the one from Lisa Brennan. And then the other one on the right is the one from the webcam from Owen Fotohagen. Says he spotted the Nessie under it using a webcam. The regular Nessie hunter from Ireland thought he had caught an image of the aquatic animal on his official webcam. Lisa Brennan, 30, and her partner Danny, 37, were driving near Uphurt Castle. I totally butchered that, I'm sure. When they made the first February sighting, Lisa snapped a photo of an L-shaped black object on the water, which could be taken as the head and neck of Nessie. She said the object disappeared shortly after she took the image. Lisa said, today we were driving around the loch as we got to Urquhart Bay, just before the castle. I spotted a long, dark object around 3 feet tall above the water surface. I shouted, oh my God, I've just seen something. I slowed down the car, he slowed down the car, didn't believe me, but each to their own. By the time I got the camera ready on my phone, the object had already lowered it into the water. So I only managed to get as much as I did on the photo as it then disappeared into the water. I made him turn around at the castle and go back to see if he saw anything else, but unfortunately we didn't. So, seems like Nessie's back. Danny didn't see anything. That was the guy driving. But he said my reaction to what I saw was very convincing. Edwin Fadahagen from Castlefin, Colorado, I think, or no, Co-Dangle? I don't know. What is that? I don't know. An avid Nessie hunter used the webcam to capture a dark shadow at the south side of Loch Ness near Klansman Hotel. He said, today, it's a great feeling you get when you have photographed something out of the ordinary in Loch Ness. It's you can see it's so blurry, it's so bad, but it definitely looks like it's similar to the other picture, something popping up. But man, they're bad. The worst are the the Nessie photos. Nessie, Bigfoot, UFO. It's always never clear a picture. If it's really too clear, then we don't believe it. It's CG, Digicabra. Okay, let's move on.
Digicabra.
All right, number 5 here. This one, I urge people to. I got the article from Unexplained Mysteries. The YouTube of Rob Wakefield is what you need to find to see this video in its entirety. This is a ghost video. We'll see. I don't know if this is shenanigans. Faint human-like form has been captured in a film near the village of Stansted. All these towns are like way out of my league to pronounce. Stansted and Montfitshit? I don't know. This particular location, which is situated between a railway line and a river, has something of a haunted reputation due to the story of a young man who reportedly was hit by a train nearby. The footage itself was recorded by Rob Wakefield, who has been visiting the area to investigate the story. He claims that he didn't see anything at the time, but only noticed that he had captured something unusual after reviewing the footage later. And for people might not be able to see it so well in the video or listening, it is like a translucent figure, and all I'll say is it reminds me of something I saw before, very similar, in kind of a foggy conditions. Mine was more at night, darker than this, but it's what it reminded me of, and it was on a roadway. It's very similar, but look at the head. The head does not look human. Or is it like a skeleton? I don't know. The head looked either skeleton-ish, or I hate to say this, Terry, it looked gray, alien-like to me. Something looked really funky about that, like almost like this is the Predator. I need the Predator sound effect. Do I have that? No, I just got that. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I think he's probably... Yeah, I think he's glad he didn't see that at the time, I'm sure. But this is the story. The story was told to me in a local pub, as well as the good ghost stories are. The story is of a young man who late one night decided to cut across the tracks rather than at the nearest bridge. He was apparently hit by a train as the driver reported a collision, but no body could be found. The rumor is that the boy was knocked off the tracks and into the river that runs by the side of the railway. As such, on certain days, you can see the ghost haunting the pathway that runs between the river and the tracks. If it's legit, it's pretty some good footage, because there's something moving there, something weird. And like I said, I tell you, go to Rob Wakefield's YouTube and look at the original video. It's something. Sorry, I can barely talk. My voice is so messed up from the dang tickle in my throat. I've been coughing so bad. All right, number 6. We got to get moving here. We're running behind. UnexplainedMysteries.com, another one I use here. This one's really crazy. Mysterious stranger saves a man's life in Turkey. This particular incident, which reportedly occurred in Adana, Turkey, saw market manager Serdar narrowly avoid a death. I'm not trying his last name. Narrowly avoid death after being alerted in advance by a complete stranger. He had been arranging goods outside his shop on an evening when he heard someone call out to him, and he felt a sudden tap on his shoulder. As he turned around to see who it was, he immediately caught sight of a large metal gate careening towards him from across the street. Instinctively, he jumped back, narrowly avoiding serious injury. When he later reviewed the CCTV footage from the time of the incident, however, he was shocked to discover that a mysterious man had walked straight forward to him and tapped him on the shoulder mere seconds before the gate was about to strike. It's really, guardian angel? I don't know, but it's really weird how it happens. It's not like, hey, man, I'll grab him and move him out of the way. No, this person's just like, let's just tap him on the shoulder and he'll figure it out. I don't know. There is something odd about this one. Just the way he does it. Watch this. Comes right up to him. His back is turned. Does he even know the gate's coming? Or did you just say, I'm just going to tap this guy on the shoulder? I don't know. That is just a weird one to me. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that because we need to move on. All right. Let's do number 7. This one, I saved this one. I got this one a few weeks ago, but I saved this one for Terry. Because this is, if my article will load, 3 UFOs fly by the International Space Station, and when slowed down, they look like triangles. 3 triangle UFOs, and these things go by fast here, fly by the International Space Station. The footage was recently filmed from the International Space Station viewport on February 21st. An astronaut aboard the ISIS recorded 3 triangle UFOs flying in a straight line. What's very interesting is that these 3 triangles UFOs flew by the International Space Station in a matter of seconds, which mathematics shows us that it can't be space debris. They're going by too fast. We start to see these objects recorded by the ISS, and not only more often could it be part of a UFO disclosure. I always wonder if they're starting to leak this stuff, because this is NASA released. What are they? And the video slows it down. You can tell. To zoom in, it's a triangle. And like I said, they're going way too fast to just be debris. You know how I love this stuff from the International Space Station. One of the UFOs actually has like a butterfly shape when they zoom into it, too. I don't know if I kept that footage on here. Yeah, it seems to change shape it changes shape when as it's flying. There it is. So that one's like got a little bit of a different shape, or a changed shape in the video. They mentioned this video, the Secure Team 10 had the butterfly-shaped one, but the definitely other ones were triangle-shaped. So I saved that for you. And speaking of, Terry, that's the end of the World Wide Web of Weird. That's how bad this night's going for me. I can't even talk about my own show. Let's make sure we can hear Terry. Maybe he's got it working. Go ahead and unmute, Terry. Let's make sure you're working good. Sometimes you got to scroll over that lower bottom and find that little mic button and unmute it. Hopefully he hears us.
Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us at least.
Can you hear us, Terry? Okay, I know what I'm going to do. He's keeping himself muted because I'm going to call him. So I'm going to call Terry. We'll keep him on video and phone. So I'll call him. Hopefully. Make sure we got him on before we go to commercial break. I want to make sure, people. That means it's also going to only be two phone lines open. Are you there, Terry?
Hi, this is Terry Lovelace. Sorry I missed your call.
Nope. I can see him, but he can't hear us. Can you hear us, Terry? It's really weird. It's like he's there, but he doesn't hear us, or I don't know. Tried calling him. Can you hear us, Terry? Put your thumb up if you hear us. I don't think he does. Uh-oh. Try
I don't
calling
think
him
he's
again.
hearing us.
So I'm trying to call him.
Jason, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
There we go.
How's the quality?
Sounds good. You guys hear him all right? Let me make sure I'm turned up here. Keep talking, Terry. I'll make sure we got you.
Yeah, I think I've got the, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
You guys hear him all right?
How's that?
Yeah, sounds better than it did before.
Okay, awesome. All right,
Good.
sir. All right, you can keep the video on. We can keep you on phone. Tonight, guys, that means later on we take phone calls. The only phone lines that will be open will be the 00 Bland 00 Skype line and the 219-230-4444. Those will be the only phone lines open. Just hang in there, Terry. We're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we'll start your interview. Had a rough start tonight. really, but just hang in there, Terry. We'll be back. And guys, don't forget we got a Patreon. I'm just trying to do two things at once here. We got a Patreon. Go check it out. You can help donate to the show to keep us going. It's $2 a month or $1 if you just want to be a weird member. But if you want to be a Paranormal Soup team member, it's $2 a month and you get some exclusive content we're going to be working on here very shortly. But tonight's guest is Terry Lovelace, author of Incident at Devil's Den. It's one of out of all, none of my other guests take this personally, but out of all the books I've read, and I've read a lot of really, really good books, I think, Terry, yours is one of my definitely favorite books I've read of a guest I've had on. All right, guys, we'll be back after this short commercial break.
necromancy. You were brought here for one purpose. Necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please, no.
And death to the living. Necromancy, starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDev.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman, I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Terry Lovelace. We had him on the show. It's been at least 6 months, I think. We had him on with Heather Wade, who helped connect me with Terry. And wherever you are, Heather, thank you still for because me and Terry have been corresponding, and we do become friends doing with a number of my guests. And Terry is one person I definitely consider a friend. And like I said, one of my favorite books of all the guests I've had. Terry Lovelace is a 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force. He completed a bachelor's degree in psychology at Park University in 1979, and he later earned a Juris Doctor at Western University of Michigan Law School. He passed the Michigan Bar examination on his first attempt. Terry Lovelace's legal career began in private practice, where he handled a variety of civil litigation and criminal defense cases. He entered public service as an assistant attorney general and later as a general counsel for the LBJ Tropical Medical Center in the U.S. territory of American Samoa. Elected by his peers, Terry Lovelace served one-year term as president of the American Samoa Bar Association. He and his wife Sheila were active members of the Lions Club and worked on events providing free glasses and eye care to the island residents. He retired in 2012 as Assistant Attorney General of the State of Vermont. Terry Lovelace continues to write and is a frequent speaker at UFO events, and his story was filmed for Strange Curiosities, a television documentary by Nine Diamond Productions Company. Like I said, when I read Terry's book, it really brought out some things that happened to me, and I really think everybody should give this book a shot if you're interested in the subject. Maybe it might make you think about some strange encounters you didn't think, because these things, when they happen, it really, people tend to not think about it. Like, you're programmed not to think about it. I'm not saying I'm an alien up to T. I don't know. I might have had an experience, I don't know. But Terry's experience, when you hear it tonight, you're going to understand why this man knows it's happening to him. He's got the evidence. He's had the physical interactions, some painful, with these beings, and it's an incredible story. So let's go ahead and get right to our guest. You still there with me, Terry?
I'm here. Thank you for the kind introduction.
I'm a little off my
Can you
game
hear me?
tonight because, like I said, the daylight savings time and having a sting tickle in my throat. So excuse me if I have trouble talking tonight.
I can hear you loud and clear. This is a special night for me, and I'm glad to be able to spend it with you. This is the 1 year. 1 year ago today, I put my book on sale at Amazon.
Oh, this is the anniversary?
Yeah, the 1 year anniversary today. So it's
Oh.
kind of a special day for me. And it's been well received, and I'm very happy. And thank you for the kind words. I've had an awful lot of people email me. My email address is in the epilogue. And tell me, something in your book resonates with me, and pull
I was one of
something
those
out
people.
my memory. Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
So,
I feel lucky to have connected with you because it made me think about things I've didn't even think about. And you know me, I'm into the weird. I have been for a long time, and it amazes me now that I didn't think about it. About some of the instances I have. It's like if I'm still not totally accepted of my experience. I don't know yet. I have to investigate it more. But if it's true, I really can see how. In the book, people are wondering, like, how did you put this off all these years? Because the original incident at Devil's Den happened in what year? 77?
Yeah, June of 1977. And I had no intention of writing a book or going public with this or discussing it until 2012. And in 2012, I just retired from the state of Vermont, and I fell, and I thought I might have broken my leg. So I went to the VA. I get all my health care from the Veterans Administration, which can be good and bad.
A lot of bad.
A lot of bad. And they x-rayed my right leg, and they found what looks like, I think you have the x-rays. I think I've sent them to you. They're also in the book, what looks like a computer chip in my leg.
Jeff
Above the knee.
Jeff should have those. Right now, actually, he's got pictures up of the stuff. We'll get to that later, Jeff. That'll be later in the show. But if you can pull up, I just want to get this right out there for the audience to see the x-rays, Jeff, if he's there. Right now, he's got these photos up. He might have stepped away. We'll see. I'll keep an eye out if he brings them up, because I do want people to see it. Because to me, that's some of the most incredible evidence you have are those x-rays.
Well, and you mentioned how when you read the book, something in it struck a chord with you.
Yes.
I can tell you when they popped those images up on the X-ray box, the view screen, it just hit me like a smack in the face. It was just something about it. Just blew me away. I realized that these things, whatever they are, had placed their hands on me.
But all those years, Terry, you had a lot. We'll get to it tonight. And that's what I want people to realize, because that's kind of how your story starts, is with this, discovering this. But what's amazing to me is the ability, the way people are like, well, how would you not think about this? How would you not think about all this stuff that's happened to you? It's like you're programmed to look the other way. Don't think about that.
Yeah, you certainly are. And I can't tell you. I mean, I've got 500 responses from people who, there we go. There are some.
Now that one,
X-rays.
Is this the one that's
still
after, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one that's left over.
That's what's left over, because they're not there anymore. We'll get to that. We're going to get ahead. There's another one in there, Jeff. Should be with the actual implant. I have a few of them in there. We'll see if he finds that one. There should be another one in there with the implant here.
That's it. Very top right corner of that X-ray.
If you could, pull that one up. Pull that one up and pull this where my arrow is at, Jeff. If you can see, well, you'd have to see on my screen. You can't see my arrow. Very top right corner, Jeff. If you can zoom in on that and pull that up. Because I want the audience, I know for the poor radio audience that are listening, you're not going to get to see. But I encourage you to not listen and come watch tonight on this one, at least this part of the show. Because to me, I want to get right to this. So, Terry, you go in.
I went in. I had the X-ray, and the X-ray technician, it comes out. She's kind of confused, and she's like, I need to take some more films. Well, she took. There we go. There was a good image.
I'm gonna put the full screen up on it. Hold on.
Yeah, there we go.
So, yeah. All right, go ahead, Terry.
So she called the radiologist down. She says, did you have an accident? How did you end up with this piece of metal in your leg? And I said, I didn't know I had a piece of metal in my leg, and I had no idea. And the radiologist came down, and he was kind of an arrogant guy. He walks in, he looks at the x-ray, and he says, well, when were you in an accident? And I said, I never was in an accident. And he walked over and he poked me in the leg, and he said, the scar will be right there. And I said, how do you know? And he said, well, this is a foreign object. It's obviously a man-made object. Well, I don't think it's
it's
man-made.
perfect square, Terry. It's a perfect square.
Yes. And the radiologist said, for this to be that deep in the fascia, the tissue, your muscle tissue, would have involved an incision that would have had to have left a scar. There's no way that this thing could be in your leg without there being a scar. And I asked him, I said, doctor, how often is it that you see a foreign object like this at this depth in a human body without there being a corresponding scar? And he just shook his head and said, never. He said, I've been a radiologist 23 years. I've never seen it happen before.
And what year was this again? I want to make sure that when this first was you first discovered this?
2012.
2012. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify. I want to make sure because I didn't want to miss what year it was.
Yes. And like I said, when I saw that, it really struck me. And then I remembered something, and that is that when I got out of the military in 1979, I took up running because I like to eat. And it was kind of a new thing back then. And they called it jogging. We don't think about it, we don't give it a second thought today. But it was kind of a new thing back then. And I recall that right as I hit the 2-mile mark in my run, beginning in 1979, I was abducted in 77. This is 2 years later when I started running. There was a spot above my knee that corresponds directly over where this object lies or lay in my leg that would go completely numb. And when I hit the 2-mile mark in my run, it was an area about the size of a little larger than a quarter or maybe a $50 that was completely numb. I could take a pin and trace the outline. It had clearly defined edges and was perfectly circular. And it hit me that, there's got to be a connection between this thing in my leg and that numb spot that I referenced it to. I spoke to a doctor about it in 1980, and he said, if it's not bothering your run, I wouldn't worry about it. And I didn't until then, until today, until now.
Until you saw it.
Until I saw it, yeah. And from my days as a prosecutor, I had some friends that worked for the FBI and for I knew someone who knew someone in the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The BATF has the largest database of computer chips and computer devices, anything that's made for a computer, manufactured anywhere in the world. They have a record of it. And this thing does not fit anything in their database.
The shape or the size of it?
In general. It's similar, I was told, by a technician. I can't say who.
Right.
But I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But he said it's similar to what's called an RIFD chip, which is like a tracking device.
Yes.
But he says that they have a catalog, and these things are manufactured, and most of them come from China. And they're all cataloged because a lot of times if there's an explosion that's, software, or pardon me, hardware like this is involved. So they have no record of it. So,
but but Terry, RFID chips that they use in secret for whatever CIA, military, aren't ones they're getting from those Chinese manufacturers. They have to be making their own. And it would be untraceable.
Yeah, absolutely true. And the question is, I don't know if it's terrestrial or extraterrestrial. I wish I knew. Either way, it was done without my permission and or my knowledge.
Right.
And, Dr. Roger Lear, the podiatrist from California, passed away in 2004, had a good career in finding people with these devices inside of them and removing them for analysis. And he said that the hallmark of a genuine alien implant is the lack of scar tissue.
Right.
So,
yeah, because our technology that we know couldn't just put that in your leg. And I'm leaving it up. People are like, oh, we're still looking at it. I'm leaving it up because during this conversation, when people really see this was in your leg, no scar tissue. And, what is it? There's a piece of wire for people listening. There's a piece of wire. It's a perfect square with a piece of wire attached to it.
Yeah, if you look close, there are two pieces of wire.
Two pieces of wire, yes. One you can almost see going through the square.
Yeah, and they go up toward my head.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I ran into a little bit of a disagreement with the Veterans Administration is, well, first of all, I ran into a lot of pushback about getting copies of my X-rays. They had excuses. Well, they didn't turn out, this or that. And I told them, I said, look, these are my X-rays. I have a right to them. I know what my rights are, and I want them. And I don't believe that you lost them, And if you did lose them, you'd better find them because I'm going to take you to federal court in Dallas, and and have a judge order you to find them. And
they're yours.
They are mine, and they are my property. And I found out from an analysis of the records, there were actually 24 images taken, and I've only been able to receive eight images. The images that I don't have and that I'd love to see are the X-rays from above showing how far up my leg these wires went. Because I'd love to know.
So when were these X-rays done?
2012, October 22nd, 2012.
And the VA, after they took them, basically locked them up.
The VA the VA stonewalled me, I'll say. And I'm just glad that I got my hands on what I have.
See, if they did that, that means they know. Somebody in there knows.
Sure they know.
Somebody knows something.
Yeah. And I brought this up to you, and we've talked on the phone and corresponded. I brought this up to you. There, for people that are unfamiliar with the territory of ufology and that, I'm not an expert or anything, just an avid interest. They're seeing this as my lab. Because you said it could either be terrestrial or extraterrestrial. Well, it could be both. Because they talk about the military working with the aliens. And what better subject than people in the military? Because they're going to go to the VA. And they'll have more control over their medical that way and to be able to track them.
Yes, absolutely true. And, I when I was abducted, I suffered some injuries. My buddy and I, we had burns. We were severely dehydrated. We were classified as acutely ill when we were admitted to the hospital. And
I want to get Terry. Actually, I know where you're going to probably go with this. I actually want, even though we talked about it last time, I do kind of want to get back into the instant though, because there's definitely people that haven't seen it, and it's so incredible. I know it's hard for you to go through it again, but I want you to give as short of a version of it as you can to the audience to tell them what happened in 1977.
And it is dramatic. I at the time I was a medic, an EMT, and I worked in an emergency room for Whiteman Air Force Base, which was a SAC base back then. They had Minuteman nuclear missiles and KC-135 tankers and B-52 bombers with nuclear weapons in them. So it was a nuclear base with a lot of security and the like. And I had a camera, and I was an avid amateur photographer. But what can you do? What you can't do? You can't use a camera on a nuclear base.
No, it's not totally it's definitely frowned upon, I would think.
It is. So my buddy says, "Hey, I got an idea, man. Let's go camping." And I'm like, "Toby, are you nuts? Neither one of us had ever been camping. We were both 22 years old. We were both city kids. Neither one of us had ever been camping before in our lives. And he had this obsession about going to this place, Devil's Den. And there were other parks around us that were nice, but he said, "Man, this is the place we got to go." And in retrospect, that was odd. But we packed our car and we were going to make this 3-day, 2-night camping trip. And we decided we didn't want to stay in the campsite, in the campgrounds with a permit. We wanted to go out by ourselves. I call it wilderness camping. And we wanted to find a place. The reason for that, we wanted to find a place on high ground because I wanted to photograph eagles, and my buddy was an amateur astronomer, and he wanted a clear view of the night sky without light pollution.
But neither one of you had ever been camping before.
Neither one of us had ever been camping. And my friend kept saying, "Hey, look, it ain't rocket science. People do this all the time. We throw some stuff together." And, we were kind of like the nerds of the squadron. We kind of approached this the way that we approached all problems. We made lists and, so anyway, we had no idea what we were doing. But we set up camp. And we trespassed into an area that was off limits and drove around a chain, actually dropped the chain and drove in and kept taking the road that went high. We kept seeking the higher the grade we could to get up high, someplace, elevated. And we found it. We found this. The gravel road deteriorated to ruts and just a trail. And we pulled up onto this, I call it a meadow, big open area with grass about knee high with like late blooming wildflowers. And there were a circle of trees and then some large rocks and boulders at one end. And it was just absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful place. And we just said, "Oh man, this has got to be the place." And I'm going to cut through some of the misadventures to get to the real part. And we were we just made some hot dogs. We were doing the normal stuff you do when you camp. And I noticed, and it sounds cliche, but I swear that this is true. And that is that all the sounds, all the night sounds in the forest had just like fallen silent. And it wasn't only silent, it was still. The leaves in the trees, we had a breeze just, an hour earlier, and now there was nothing. And I remember that from the light of the campfire, looking at the tree line in back of us, the trees had an odd appearance in that they were so still. They almost looked like a 3D image or a hologram instead of what I was really looking at. And this unnerved me in a big way. And I said, "Toby, man, this is not normal, And he's like, "Hey, look, man, we've been laughing and cutting up. It's, it's cool. They'll be back. The crickets, the tree frogs, things will come back." And I tried to put it out of my mind. And we're talking, and he snaps his head to the left, which would have been to the west. And he says to me, he says, "Hey, man, were those out there before? Those things, were those there before?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And sure enough, over his shoulder, there is a perfect little triangle of 3 lights, about as bright as the North Star. And they form a perfect little triangle. And they were too high up off the horizon to have been traffic lights or from a parking lot. But they were too low and they were stationary. And we knew aircraft. There was no aircraft that had triangular configuration of lights like that. So about this time, we're debating on, what are these? And I felt the first wave of calm overtake me. And it was very similar to if you've ever had a surgical procedure and they give you preoperatively, they give you a shot to an injection to calm you
Mickey.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mickey. That's what it felt like, and I felt this calm wash over me, and the anxiety that I felt earlier was gone.
One of the misadventures, though, we should point out at this moment, because you're seeing lights up in the skies on your way there, you discovered you forgot your camera. So you didn't have a camera to take a picture of.
I didn't have a camera, and I thought about this for years.
I know.
And had I had a camera with me, I don't think it would have made one bit of difference. And I think that's part of how they control you, is that sense of, because Toby had a camera. He had a camera in his backpack. Neither one of us ever thought to use it.
Yeah.
It was just we didn't think about it. And it's that kind of thing about not talking about it. And I'll get to that in a minute, but all the way home, we never discussed this. All the 6+ hour drive home, we never once discussed this whole matter.
Well, you were more preoccupied at the time, but we'll get to that.
So while we're talking about this, these things move. And at first, what they did, they rotated about 3/4 of a turn, like they were on an axis. And we were initially kind of excited, like, whoa. And then we calm down again, and they start to move up into the sky. And then the conversation between us stops, pretty much. I think that Toby, I think he said something to the effect of, they're really moving now, or they're picking up speed, or they're really moving now, is what he said. And I don't recall answering him. And we watched these 3 stars as they traveled up in the sky. They grew and they expanded, and they all stayed equidistant to one another. They kept that triangle formation, but this thing grew. It got bigger, and we could tell that it was a beautiful night. There had to be a billion stars out, and inside, between the 3 points of light, it was jet black. It was much darker than it was in the surrounding blue sky from the starlight. So we discerned it was definitely a solid object, and not 3 objects in unison. And it continued to get bigger, and as it grew and it passed over fields of stars, they would blank out as it passed by, and then blink back on as they got past. And it reached a ceiling of, I don't know how high, but it seemed to reach a ceiling and then started descent. And as it came down, it was clear that this thing was headed right for our campground. And neither one of us were alarmed. And this is hard to explain, but it was almost a disinterest. I mean, we were watching, but we felt almost like observers rather than
You think you might be concerned about the big triangle UFO heading towards your valley, but...
Yeah. And when I say big, this thing, Jason, was just enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a city block long on all 3 sides. Wow. Was my estimation. And it was 5 stories in depth. And it came to a stop. It was incredible, because over our heads, it was like somebody just took a scissors and cut this giant triangle out of the night sky, and there was just this black void, and it was huge. And the lights that were on the ends of the triangle dimmed, and this thing came to a halt about 3,000 feet over our head. I'm estimating could have been 2,500 feet, but somewhere in that range. And we're looking at it, and my buddy picks up a flashlight and says, "I'm going to try to signal it." And
sounded like a good idea at the time.
Before I could say no. Actually, no. Actually, I was kind of like, yeah, so what? Yeah, cool, do it. And
in retrospect, you're like, no.
Yes, yeah. Looking back, looking back, I'd have said, let's get in the car and leave. But he flashed this flashlight a couple of times. He held it over his head. We're both still reclining. We're laying on these inflatable yellow blow-up mattresses like you use in the pool. And as soon as he flashes this light at this thing, directly from the center and underneath of this triangle, there came a light. And it just flipped on. It's like somebody flipped a switch. And it was a light that was about 6 inches in diameter, about like the diameter of a softball. And it landed square in the middle of our campfire, which was now just embers anyway. And we were both shocked, but neither one of us said a word. And we're looking at this thing, and my mind is kind of racing. I'm thinking, what is this? What are we in the middle of here?
It's just like like a beam of blue light that just shoots down from the base of it, right?
It was from the base of it. This was a beam of white light.
White light, sorry.
Yes, this was white light that was, like I say, about like a searchlight cutting through heavy fog, that kind of thing, visible white light. And it stayed on for maybe a minute. It never moved. It landed square in the middle of our campfire and remained stationary in our campfire for about a minute. And then it clicked off. And in its stead, there came a reddish blue light. I have trouble with colors. I'm colorblind.
Oh.
And I have trouble with, colors that are, if it's not straight blue or red, I have a little difficulty with it. But I think this was purplish, reddish in color, about the diameter of a pencil. And it was definitely a laser. I mean, this was 1977. I didn't have much experience with lasers, if anybody did. And it's hard to describe. This light came on, landed in the campground, and would stay there for a millisecond, and then turn off, and then immediately turn back on at another location for a millisecond, then turn off, and then turn back on at another location. So this thing gives the illusion of it's dancing all over the campsite.
Or like it's searching for something.
That's scanning is the word that crossed my mind. It's scanning us. And it struck me, this light struck me in the chest and in the head. And I know it struck Toby. And I felt nothing.
Yeah, no shock, no like, what is going on here? You're obviously having those thoughts, but you're in this state of like, oh, cool.
That's where we were. We were there, and we didn't talk about it. And this purple light danced around the campsite for about three minutes. I'm guessing it's hard to be certain, but about 3 minutes, and then it just turned off. And we sat there, and I remember thinking the crickets and the tree frogs never did come back. And it was just that eerie silence. And a few minutes pass, and my buddy says, show's over. And then we both stood up in unison, and we grabbed our little air mattresses, and it was a tiny little tent. And he dragged his air mattress in first and threw it down and fell on top of it. And then I dragged mine in, and I threw it down. I didn't bother to undress. I didn't bother to take my boots off. Which would be significant later.
Yeah.
But the last thing I remember was just falling down on this mattress, and I could hear Toby snoring softly, and because he was out, boom, the minute he hit the pillow. And I was out, and I had no dreams. It was like being under anesthesia. I mean, just a period of time with just nothingness. And then I woke up, and I didn't have my wits about me. I'm like, well, where am I? And there's these brilliant flashing lights, and they're yellow and white and green, kind of a greenish yellow, that makes sense. And they're flashing really, really bright. They're flashing like that. Old school cameras had these big light bulbs full of filaments, and when they would go off, there was this brilliant flash of light. And that's how bright these things were. Or like from an arc welder, they were that bright.
Yeah.
And they were flashing, not in sequence, not anything that's predictable, just, flashing. And when they did, they illuminated the whole inside of the tent. And I thought, again, I don't have my wits about me, but I'm thinking this must be like overhead lights from a park ranger's truck or something.
Yeah, it would have been my first thought.
Yeah, and then I could hear also this droning sound, and it was not so much loud as it was powerful. You could feel it in your chest, like if you ever stood next to a speaker at a concert or something, you get that reverberation in your chest, and that's what this sound was like. And in one of the flashes of light, I start to sit up, and I'm realize I'm in a lot of pain. And I'm looking at my buddy, and he's on his knees, and he has the flap of the tent pulled back, and he's peering out the flap of this tent. And I spoke, and I said, "Toby, what is it, man? Is it park rangers?" And he goes, and he hushes me and says, "I think they're still out there." And I'm like, "Who? Who's out there, man? Is it park rangers? Who's out there?" And that's when he said, "Don't you remember, Terry? They took us and they hurt us. Don't you remember?" And then I did. Now I didn't remember everything that happened to us, and it wasn't a seamless kind of narrative.
But it was a knowing.
But it was a knowing, and it was flashes of memory of ugly things. I recall him screaming. I heard a woman screaming. But I had flashes of these things, and I got to my knees, and I kind of nudged him to the left, and I pulled back my flap of the tent, and I looked out. And I'm still not with it. I mean, I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. And I saw what I first took to be children, about 15, a dozen or 15, and they're paired up in groups of 2s and 3s. And they were just wandering around this meadow. And I said, "Toby, what are these kids doing out here in the middle of the night?" And that's when he said, "Man, those ain't no little kids." And I could see that they weren't human beings. Their heads were large. Their bodies were disproportionate. Their limbs were too long. They walked with an unusual gait. That people have asked me to describe. The only thing I could think of, they walked almost like they had sore feet, or like they were wearing shoes that were too small or something.
Like they waddled?
Yeah. They did not, it was not a human gait. It was different. Something was different about it. And I should mention that when we went to bed, this thing was 2,500, 3,000 feet over our heads.
And you just went to bed.
And we just went to bed. Yeah. And now it's descending. And this thing is now 30 feet above us. It's just like 3 stories over our head. And it is humongous. And it's just gigantic. And it is lit up like crazy. I have a drawing that I made of it. In 1978, I did a pencil drawing. And there were windows.
Should be in there, Jeff, if you find that. I'm pretty sure I added that. I hope I did. I might not have. Whoops. Go ahead.
Yeah, there were windows in this thing, and there was like an observation deck that was the entire top tier of this object. And windows were lit all over the place. And I mean, light was just pouring out of this thing. And I wonder to this day how this had to have been seen. This had to have been visible for 20 miles. I mean, it was just incredibly big and incredibly bright. And we could see motion behind the glass, behind these windows. You know, I couldn't make out details, but we could see something, movement. And from underneath this thing, there came a column of light, similar to the light that landed in the campfire. That was the visible column of white light, I called it. This was the same kind of visible white light. And it was about 30 feet in diameter, and it was like a cylinder of light that came down from the middle of this thing. And these little guys would wander in twos and threes into this light, and they would dissolve. And you would see them just dissolve. And I might mention that, all of that disinterest or apathy that we had earlier, all that's all long gone. We are just absolutely terrified. We were just absolutely scared out of our wits. And yeah, there's the picture.
Yeah.
For those who can see, I drew. There's a car and little figures at the bottom to give some kind of notion of the scale of the thing. A little 66 Impala there.
And I see you drew windows, like on the upper deck. Like you can see like little figures in it, right?
Yes. We could see movement. I couldn't make out figures, but whatever source of light lit up the inside of this thing was just brilliant. Because, like I say, the light was very intense, and that's why all we could see was silhouetted shadows on windows. But it gave the illusion of, it was just like somebody levitated a 5-story office building is what it was like. It was just this monstrously huge thing. And on the apex of each triangle, of course, this shows 3. From our vantage point, we could only see 2 sides. And there was panels of light. I indicated there were light panels. And they were panels that ran from the very bottom to the very top of the thing. And they were emitting light. And after the last of these little guys dissolved, while it had been flashing colored lights before, the thing went dark. And it switched to white lights on all 3 corners. And there was a beam of light that would travel up and down that light bar. And it's an odd thing to remember, but I do clearly recall thinking, I bet that's what gives it the illusion of it being a star. It makes it look like it's twinkling.
Flickers.
Yes, it gives it that twinkling effect when it's in the sky. And we watched it. We were too terrified to move. My buddy's hyperventilating, and I'm like, Toby, you got to get a hold of your breathing, man. You're hyperventilating. And we watched it, and we just tried to be as silent as we could be, and it lifted off. And it lifted off not like a rocket or something. It just like a hot air balloon would lift off. It just rose up and turned a little bit and just went straight up. And we rolled over on our backs with our heads sticking out of this tent, and we watched this thing go straight up into the sky until it had disappeared. And we lay there, and we were too afraid. We were too afraid to talk. And the crickets and tree frogs had not come back. And both of us knew we had to get out of there. And it sounds odd, but I felt some security being inside the tent.
Like, what's a tent going to do at this point, right?
Yeah, but you know what? It was better than nothing.
Better than being out there.
Yeah, they couldn't see me, and I did not want to be in the open.
Right.
In the short distance it takes to run to the car. And, to this day, that stuck with me. I do not want to be out in open spaces by myself. I will. If I have to walk a quarter or a half mile around someplace to get to a destination, I'll do that rather than cut across an open field. I'd never be on a golf course by myself. And
might not finish the 18th hole.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen me golf. There were a couple of other things I don't think I mentioned in my book, but this would be a good time to include them. And that was in the after effects that I didn't like being outside at night. and I still don't like being outside at night. Both of our watches stopped. Now, we were EMTs, and a watch is kind of it's an important piece of you need it in what you do. Both of our watches had stopped. This is 1977. We both had wind-up watches, which were the norm in the day, and my watch had stopped at 2:40. It was an Elgin watch. God, I wish I'd kept that.
2:40 a.m. would have been when this happened, maybe?
Yeah, it would have had to been 2:40 a.m., yeah.
Yeah.
And Toby's watch didn't work either. And for a year, I had trouble wearing a watch. I could wear a watch 6 or 8 weeks. It didn't matter if it was an expensive watch. Didn't matter if it was a cheap watch. It would last 6
I
8
have
weeks.
that problem still.
You have that problem still?
I've had that problem since my teens. At least I know when I try to wear a watch, I would just have to throw it out or get a new battery replacement, get tired of doing it. It even happens with my Apple Watch. People are like, oh, that should last you like a whole day or 2 days. Nope. Nowhere near it. Like 6 hours.
Yes. Well, I bought these at the time. I could buy a pocket watch for $3. And I could carry one of those for maybe 2 months. But eventually that got better. And watches became kind of an obsession for me for some reason. Maybe that's why. And I also developed an allergy to gold, which doctors told me was absolutely impossible. You could not be allergic to gold. And my wife will testify, because I couldn't wear my wedding band.
Oh, wow.
My skin, where my skin was in contact with gold for more than a day or two, I'd get this scaly red rash. And I wore a gold chain, and on the back of my neck, where that chain was in constant contact with my neck, I developed a red rash and scaly skin. Doctor insisted.
Did this seem to happen right after this event that you started to become allergic, or just kind of years down the road after it?
No, this happened immediately after.
Wow.
This was immediately after. Now, after about a year, I could wear gold. But it took a good year, or maybe a little longer, before I could wear gold. And same with the watches. The watches, eventually I was able to wear a watch. And so that got better. But some of the things still haunt me. I was at a UFO event, the first one I'd ever been to. I think I've only been to 2. And I met a guy who was an abductee. And I wasn't on the agenda as a speaker, but they asked me to speak, and I did. And I met this guy, and we start talking, and we had all these things in common. It just blew my mind. It's like I wigged out and still feel uncomfortable when I walk past naked mannequins in a storefront window. Unnerved me for some reason.
Really?
And he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, same. Scares him too. And there were a couple of other things. But we both have a nighttime ritual. And since 1977, I've always carried a handgun. And that sounds kind of pathetic. I know. I don't know what this would do. But I feel better having it than not having it. And I always have it. And, I carry a gun lawfully. But when I couldn't get it lawfully, I carried it anyway. And he did the same thing. This guy I met down in Houston did the same thing. And I said, yeah, I keep it by my bed. And I said, yeah, I keep a Browning high-power 9mm by my bed. And he says, oh, well, I keep a .45 right by my bed. And he kept his exactly in the same spot on his bedside table as I did. And we both kept high-power flashlights, the same brand, 500 lumen, very powerful flashlights, and then ever so often, I would have one of these night terrors, and I would have to get up and do this ritual. I couldn't go back to sleep, and that would involve turning on a light and with a handgun and go from room to room and check the closets, make sure the alarm's on, the doors are locked, and go back to bed.
It's just like what a veteran of a war would do with PTSD. You know, somebody's gone through a traumatic event.
Yeah, we know that the VA tested me for PTSD and found that I had PTSD and all classic symptoms of PTSD. And they wanted to know, well, you weren't in combat. And I'm like, no, I never left the States. You know, like, well, you obviously had some type of trauma in your life. What happened to you? And
like, I'd like to know.
It
you know,
left
the
a
last
tip in
thing,
my leg.
Yeah.
You know, I thought they were going to lock us up. I thought the OSI, the Air Force investigators, were going to lock us up.
Well, one thing, because we're going to go to commercial break here in 5 minutes. I want to get to this story after you saw this and you guys booked it out of there. We haven't really talked about yet, too, is how ill you both were. You were both severely ill.
We were terribly ill. I had never been so thirsty in my life. And like I said, there were very few words that we spoke between us. And I said, you know, hey, man, if you can find something to drink in this car, I'll drink it. If it's not poison, find it, I'll drink it. And, of course, there was nothing in the car. And he was hurt worse than I was. I was hurt pretty bad, but Toby was really hurt. And he had curled up into a fetal position on the bench seat of my car. And he was sleeping. And I stopped to get some gas, and that's when I saw how badly I was burned. The skin on my scalp, the skin on the soles of my feet.
How's that happen?
I mean, it's just crazy. It's just so I didn't blister anywhere, but I had second-degree burns. You know, just this angry red sunburn all over. I mean, everywhere. And Toby was African American, and he was in. We couldn't see. He didn't appear burned,
right.
But his face had swollen, and his eyes were almost swollen shut. And I was hurting, but I think he was hurting a lot worse than I was. We made the trip back to base, and I recall saying when we were about 15 minutes out, I recall nudging him and saying, "Hey, man, we got an ETA F-15." And he kind of mumbled something. And we went back into base housing, and I dropped him off at his house. We both lived in NCO housing, just a couple blocks from one another. And our wives took us to the hospital because we were a wreck. I had 103 temperature and was just incredibly dehydrated. And and they admitted us. But what was curious is they separated us.
Yeah.
And we were ordered to have no contact with one another.
Yeah. This is by the OSI guys.
Yes. Well, first it was by the hospital commander. He came in and he said, "You're to have no contact with Sergeant Tobias, and he's to have no contact with you. Do you understand me, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir." "And that means no notes. That means no communication by third parties. That means nothing. No phone calls. Do you understand me? That's an order." And I said, "Yes, sir, I understand." I didn't understand. But, there was an odd change in our... I mean, here this guy was. We worked together for years. We were best of friends. I wanted to go to University of Michigan Law School. He wanted to go to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and study cosmology or astronomy. And he was a brilliant guy. He would have been an asset to the world. But I wanted nothing to do with the guy.
After this event.
After this event, on the way home, I could not reconcile my emotions. I didn't want anything to do with the guy. I did feel like I wanted to tell him goodbye, and I did engineer to get that done.
At great risk to you.
At risk to me, yeah. scared to death I was going to go to jail. You know, that's part of the reason why I can recall this with such clarity is because, well, number one, it's just such a big event in your mind. It burns itself into your consciousness. But I kept notes because I thought, because I was threatened with a court-martial over this trespass into federal land.
Right.
Which I didn't see. I don't. What's a big deal? I mean, but they knew because when the OSI came to see me in the hospital, I'm in a bed. They put me. They wanted to know how many pictures of this thing I took because they knew I was an amateur photographer. They knew I had a dark room, but they knew. Here's how I know that they know. And that was, at the end of the interrogation, there was a captain and a major. The major was the guy in charge. The captain packs up his briefcase. He leaves. He shuts the door. And this major gets down low next to my ear. And the door is closed, and it's just us in the room. And he says, son, I know, and you know, you two knuckleheads stumbled onto something out there. Didn't you? You know what I mean. And all I want to know is how many pictures of it did you take? And I want the film. And this will all go away. That's all I want. And I said, sir, I don't have any. I didn't take a single picture. And he put on this tough guy affect again. And he was an intimidating guy. And he said, I don't believe you. He took a business card and dropped it on my desk and says, if you find that film, just give me a call. And he left. And,
but that wasn't the end of it with him.
Was not the end of it at all. No.
We do got to go to commercial break here. So when we come back, we're going to continue on in this story. For me, the other thing, we really delved into this. I made sure last time we had you on was the hypnosis session. And to me, in that session, I don't want to go all into it like we did last time because we got other aspects of the story I want to get to. But the way that they thought you were hypnotized, the things they said to me showed they knew all about abductions. They knew all about the aliens. They knew all about that. They basically spilled the beans while they thought you were completely under. So this is the thing, guys. There's so many aspects to this story. I encourage you to read Incident at Devil's Den. This is, if you enjoyed Communion or the Travis Walton story, this is up there in my list of experiences you have to read to believe this is such an amazing, incredible experience Terry's had. All right, guys, we'll be back after this short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
Knights of the road, here's your stallion. The car for freedom. The car for hot excitement. The car for a man who is alone against the elements.
My Batsu Thunder.
The pride is back. It's the power of a compact.
Looks small, but it's so big.
Fuel injected.
Inject me.
My Batsu Thunder. On the toll road of life, you have to pay to prove you can. Live the emotion of an individual.
Thunder.
The awesome power of nature distilled into one vehicle. Because after you get struck by lightning, there's thunder.
The Maibatsu Thunder.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hey kids, tired of running away from home? Then getting lost and wrapping your big wheel around a cow? Then having no one to turn to other than that weirdo in the van with the dark tinted windows? Or his friend, your creepy Uncle John? Well, worry no more with new OnStar for Kids. Now you can run away in style with an OnStar for Kids kit installed in your big wheel, tricycle, or cute little smart car. Yes, just in time for Christmas, OnStar for Kids. So the next time you're on your way to Granny's house, or Weekend Dad's pathetic little bachelor pad, and you run over a homeless person in your toboggan, OnStar for Kids will clean up the mess, hide the hobo body, and get you there in time for nappies.
This is OnStar. Do you need someone to kiss your boo-boo?
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, we're talking to Terry Lovelace, author of Incident at Devil's Den. We've had him on the show before. If you didn't see it the first time, there's a lot of stuff we covered there. I'm kind of skipping past because we're trying to get to stuff we didn't cover last time. This is kind of like part two. And actually, I had the first time we had him on playing on our radio network as a rerun right before the show started, in case anybody was listening. Because this is really like a part two. There's stuff I want to try to get to we didn't get to last time. There's stuff we didn't even cover, like Terry will probably get into with him on, the incident at Devil's Den wasn't his first encounter with a UFO. That this is something that's been going on all his life. These are the things of why you need to read this book. There's so much more to this story. We're only covering snippets of it, but it's incredible. And if you maybe have had some of these similar experiences, you'll find maybe some resonance to his story, maybe with you. And if you did, you will be able to call in the show, share your experience, or if you have a question for Terry, you can call in. There's only two lines open tonight. That's the 219-230-4444 and the Skype ID OOJBland00. You can call in on those two lines. Just hold until we call upon you, because I don't want to interrupt Terry if he's in the middle of his story, but we will get your call. Just wait. But speaking of, let's get back to our guest. Still there with us, Terry?
I'm here. I'm here and ready.
Like I mentioned here as we're coming back from the break, we didn't even get into, the fact that when you were a kid, you had a couple of different times that that you saw a flying saucer or a UFO, and the monkey men. These are all things that you kind of discover after the implant discovery in 2012. The things that kind of come back to you.
This is probably the most common thing that when people email me, this is the most common thing I hear. And I hear that when I was a kid, and I need to catalog these because it's a pretty significant piece of information. People that say, yeah, I saw owls in my room, or I saw monkeys too, or, I saw little brown hairy guys, or I saw these deer with great big eyes. Or I saw birds, chickens, raccoons, cartoon characters, Disney characters. And I guess it's, they know us, they understand us, and they know how to appear to us when we're children in a way that's benign and not terrifying. And
I remember, I know you don't watch a lot of science fiction. Just talking to you, I know you don't. But there was a TV miniseries called Taken, done by Steven Spielberg, and it was about them abducting people over a series of generations, and that it follows these families. And one of the kids, when he's taken, and this is like I think for him it was like the 1940s or 30s, he sees a big giant chipmunk because his mom was reading him a chipmunk bed story, and he's like, "Come play with me." And that's how you hear about these things. Yeah, like that's how they know their children. These things are their intelligence is obviously superior to ours. They know how to easily get a child to come with them.
Yes, I have a sister who's about 12 years older than I am, and she wouldn't read my book, and wanted nothing to do with it. And she called me and said, I feel bad that I wasn't able to help you. And I said, it's okay. And she says, we got up in the middle of the night when the lights were coming through the windows. And you weren't in bed. And she says, you weren't in the bathroom and you weren't in your bed. And the lights were coming in and we didn't know what to do.
That's incredible.
I had two sisters about a year or so apart, and they shared a room across the hall from mine in our home, South St. Louis City. And she was apologetic and said, I feel so bad. I felt so bad all these years that I wasn't able to help you.
There's nothing she could have done.
Okay. No, not a thing. I mean, I'm sure that I wasn't alone. I'm sure she probably had her turn too.
That's the ultimate. How many people in your family, or how far does it go back, with your family? That's the wonder of it. I mean, because you hear all these stories. I mean, Whitley Strieber, I'm pretty sure if I remember interviews, ended up having memories where he remembered later on when he was a child being abducted with him and his father. Didn't come to him till later. It's like this moment of discovery then opens up this Pandora's box of memories you've just looked away from all these years.
It's an epiphany. It's on the same order of when you see a UFO. I mean, if you see it.
Hold on, Terry. How did we lost Terry. Hold on. Calling him back because I got him on the phone. You see him on video, but his audio is through a phone.
There we go. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Everybody can see you, but the audio cut off. So.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So yeah, I was just saying that when you see a UFO, when you have an event, it changes you. It changes you for life. And I remember I was just 11 years old when I saw a flying saucer when I was 8. And I had these monkey experiences. And then again when I was 11, I saw a flying saucer parked outside my second-story window.
And these were saucers. These ones you saw were like the typical saucer.
Classic flying saucer.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had that same feeling of disinterest. And I watched the thing, turned around, went back to bed. Crazy.
Everybody's like, I wouldn't turn away until it flew off, but you were just like, just a UFO out my window.
Yeah. But you know, seeing this changes you. I mean, because I remember at age 11, I'm thinking, and this is pretty heavy for a kid who's 11. I'm thinking, well, you know, somebody's flying this thing, and it doesn't say CCCP, and it doesn't say USAF. And I think it's, in my limited knowledge, but I'm thinking, you know, this has to be something otherworldly. And that means that, you know, this thing is obviously a mechanical device. It had to be assembled by somebody in a factory. And that means that somewhere on some distant planet there are workers who go in and probably carry their lunchbox. And they work for 9 hours or whatever, and they assemble these flying saucers. And then probably they go home and have dinner with their wives and families. And it was just mind-blowing for me at age 11 to conceive of this entire civilization out there.
But you weren't even connecting the dots at age 11 because you had the Monkey Man experiences that you saw. But you weren't even connecting those to the ship or or them being aliens at that time.
No, I didn't. You know, when I had the first UFO experience, I was age 8, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I couldn't connect anything negative with that experience because I was so impressed. I recall I was in my backyard, and I saw I was looking down, and I saw the circular shadow move across my feet. And I looked up, and right over my head is this, maybe 50 feet, there's this classic flying saucer. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful in the way that a brand new sports car is beautiful.
Yeah. And when you say that, it makes me think of the Bob Lazar reference to the UFO he saw. I called it the sports model.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
Yeah.
I need to see the movie. I do.
I haven't seen the newest documentary, so I haven't either, but I've heard enough of interviews.
One of Travis Walton's fellow, he wasn't abducted, but one of the people that were on the logging crew with Travis Walton also made that comparison. He said that it was sexy like a new Corvette.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I thought, yeah, that's right. It is. It was cool.
I mean, it's a spaceship, man.
Yeah, it was a spaceship.
I'm a geek for that.
Yeah. So, and that's why I thought I was an expert on UFOs. I mean, UFOs were flying saucers. That's why when I saw this triangle, I'm trying to reconcile, well, what is this thing? And then we saw, 2 years earlier, we saw a...
you and Toby.
Toby and I were on a ambulance run, and we saw a thing that looked like, I call it a black diamond in the book.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't a flying saucer, I didn't think it was anything at all supernatural or paranormal. I thought it was surely a...
Rooskies.
And we were told by the hospital commander, yes, boys, you can't say anything about this, but that was an experimental helicopter.
Oh, that's right.
So no talking about it, understand? And we're like, yes, sir, yes, sir.
And this was a nuclear base.
Yes. And they were common. Now, I didn't see this, but Robert Hastings interviewed me and wanted to know my experiences because there were a lot of sightings. Now, I heard this rumors, I heard this from people, but I don't have any firsthand experience with it, so it's hearsay. But at the nuclear bunker where they stored the nuclear warheads, which is under amazingly tight security, you can only imagine.
Oh, yeah.
On a fairly regular basis, these glowing orange, yellow saucers would fly around and aim a red laser beam at these bunkers. And like I say, I never saw that, but evidently that happened on a fair amount of regularity.
Well, one of the incidences that's most famous is that they actually shut the missiles down to make them inoperative at one missile installation.
Oh.
And then in Russia had an experience where they actually fired up the missiles' launch codes.
Ooh.
So not just us, but Russia had the same experiences. So obviously the aliens have had an interest in our nuclear missiles and our programs. That's always seemed to be the a really interesting aspect to it. It's like, what's their interest in it? Are they doing that because they fear what we might do to ourselves? Are they? Some people think, oh, they're going to protect us. They're going to stop nuclear war. I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you're looking for a message of hope, you could find it in that and think, yeah, these things are hopefully wise enough to save humanity. There's a physician who speaks about UFOs and kind of has he takes the stance that these are kind of like our alien space brothers.
Right.
And that they're here with good intentions.
And I've had guests on the show. I've had alien experiencers. They don't call themselves abductees. I've had a couple that they believe that they're space brothers. They're friendly and they're here to enlighten us.
Well, I wanted to ask this doctor so bad. I mean, he's a medical doctor. He's a physician, and he says these things are our friends and they've been visiting us for thousands of years. Well, I just want to ask, well, doctor, if that's true, why wouldn't they have told us a couple hundred years ago, hey, you guys, wash your hands before surgery? That's all they would have to say.
Right.
Why couldn't they share that little tidbit with us and saved a couple million lives? So if they didn't do that, I'm not sure that they'd go through the effort to shut down our missiles, unfortunately.
Well, there's evidence that with the plague, the bubonic plague, of the descriptions of lights in the sky, so that they say sometimes, they say a comet could have been a comet, or comets were bad omens. Well, what if they weren't talking about comets? They're talking about alien ships they saw in the sky, and then next thing you know, a bunch of people are dying. I think there's a lot of evidence to show that there's not always good intentions with whatever's flying up there, or what they're doing. I mean, like you said, maybe they have the prime directive, Terry. I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan. Maybe they have the prime directive. They're not supposed to interfere, but there's some evidence to me that they do, and they don't do it in a good way sometimes.
Yes. Well, they tagged me like a lab rat, and I don't think that I got any benefit from it. I don't know what they got from me, other than maybe genetic material. But I didn't have a positive experience. There are people out there that do, and God bless them for it. And
but who knows? Who knows, Terry? Though, I mean, I believe them. I believe they're having a positive experience. Who knows what's going on? I mean, look at this. I mean, you were taken as a child. You say your experiences weren't the most positive as a child, but they were nowhere near as negative as the 1977 incident with the triangle. Would you say that?
I would absolutely say that. As a matter of fact, I kind of have, because I remember I had a recall, although during these abductions as a child, there was a petite Asian-looking woman that was present when I was taken as a child. And
this is Betty that you refer to in the book?
I do. I refer to her as Betty. When I was a child, I referred to her as Sue, because she reminded me of an elderly Asian woman that lived in our neighborhood, who all of us kids, we all referred to her, called her Sue. And, but I felt no animosity towards this woman. If anything, I felt an affection for her, not in a romantic way, but in a kind of a maternal way. I felt, a kinship with her. And that's another emotion it's hard for me to reconcile. But
right, because you're being forcibly taken, tricked or taken by these people. You don't think you'd feel any kind of kinship, especially with what happened in 1977, with the repercussions of everything in your life and the way you were physically treated. Now, the question comes to mind is the implants in your knee. could that have been there all your life since you were a kid, or did it have did that get put in 1977?
You know, I think I've got. I think all I can do is think. Because I had no proof. I mean, I can prove it was there. I think that was implanted in 1977. I don't think I had that as a kid because after I was out of the Air Force a year and a half, almost about 2 years after the event, I was out of the Air Force, and that's when I started running, and that's when I noticed that numb spot. So that's sometime between 1977 and 1979 that thing got put into my leg.
I'll say this to the audience: if you do read, and I do encourage you to read Incident at Devil's Den, you don't speculate in the book. You really just lay out the story, everything you remember. And thank you to your wife, Sheila, for making you write this stuff down in your journal all those years ago. Thank you, Sheila.
She's waiting, yeah.
But you don't speculate a lot. And I do like that about the book. You get straight to the facts. But there's the me that wants to speculate a little bit about some of this, because I think there's ties, or I think there's things here, Terry, that just things that came to mind. You know, I think, and I've thought about recently, and we brought it up. One, being in the military, being an abductee beforehand, before joining the military. If there was some kind of program the aliens were running, especially in cooperation with the United States government, an abduction program, because they had their own intentions and we had some deal with them. That's the conspiracy theory. That's the speculation. I mean, there's a possibility you could have been influenced to join the military without knowing it.
You know, I've thought that. I've certainly thought that. And I look at my friend,
Tobias,
and I look at his fascination with the night sky.
Yes.
This guy lived to watch the night sky. I mean, he knew the constellations. He could tell when a satellite was going to come over. I mean, he lived. And after the fact, years later, I thought, you know, I bet I know why he was so fascinated with the night sky, because I bet he had his own monkey men that he dealt with.
That's the thing we'll never get to know, because after this incident, I mean, we kind of briefly mentioned it. You were told by your commanders, whatever, not to talk to him. You're told by OSI. You did make an attempt to talk to him, and got in big trouble for it.
I did, and that was a really poignant moment. And I'll be quick, but I would like to.
Yeah, you should.
But, on our way, my wife and I were coming back from a grocery store. We lived just a few blocks away on the base. And I asked her, I said, Sheila, we'll just pull over. I want to run in and I want to say goodbye. And she didn't want to, but she relented.
Because Toby was getting moved off of base. They reassigned him to get him away from, separate you two.
Yeah, they got him, he got at light speed. I mean, he was on his way to Japan just quick. And she pulled up and I got out of the car and I ran up to the door, and this is a door I walked through 100 times before, and his wife, I refer to her as Tammy in the book. And, we were all just so close. And she just glared at me and said, "You're not supposed to be here." And it hit me that, she blames me for their being uprooted and shipped halfway across the world. And my friend Toby must have heard our exchange, and he came out from around the corner, and he was always meticulous about his appearance, and he was just a wreck. He was disheveled, and he went on a dirty T-shirt and no shoes, and he was a short guy. And I walked up to him, and it was awkward. I wanted to hug the guy because I felt that would be appropriate, and I didn't. And I held my hand out, and we went through this awkward kind of back and forth thing, and I shook his hand, and he looked up at me, and I could see his eyes were just like bloodshot, like road maps. And I could smell vodka on his breath. And we made eye contact, and he said, "It happened, didn't it, Terry?" and I couldn't look at him, and I'm looking at my shoes, and I told him, I said, yeah, man, it all happened. You're not losing your mind. It really did happen. And I never looked back at him, and I turned around and left the house. And that's the last I saw of my friend.
And you had the OSI right up on your butt as soon as you walked out the door, pretty much, right?
Right in back of us.
Yeah.
Right in back of us. And we got home, and my phone's ringing, and it was, I referred to as Special Agent Gregory, who was on the phone, and he said, well, you just couldn't do it, could you? You just couldn't obey. And he says, you know what really me off whenever people don't obey my orders? And he said, you know, watch yourself, Lovelace. Watch out, because I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Did they ever give you like any explanation as to why they didn't want you two to be together?
No. I'd love to know. But my guess is, I think it's obvious that we both saw something pretty significant.
Yeah.
And they were afraid that we would put our stories together and, you know, get a hold of ABC News and say, hey, this is what we saw. I think they were terrified of that happening. Or me. I think they were terrified that I took pictures of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's obviously he was going to grill you until you gave it up.
Yeah. But after the hypnosis, I think they were satisfied.
Right.
Because they had their hypnosis, and they asked me, they said, the hypnotist asked me, he said, have you been honest with everything that you've told these agents? And I knew that I wasn't under hypnosis.
They tried to drug-induce hypnosis. Not only was it just hypnosis, they gave you drugs.
They did. One of the forms that I signed when I was in the hospital, they had me sign a bunch of forms. I signed a consent for search, and they searched my house. And they took another thing odd. I had this fascination with the moon, and I was, I was going to say, rings a bell. And I had a telephoto lens, and I had my darkroom set up, and I had black and white photographs of the moon, and they got those. And,
well, what would we need with photos of the moon?
You know, I don't know. But they took my photos. They took my photos. They took my film. But I also signed a consent for. It was something to the effect of hypnotic regression with chemical enhancement, or something along those lines.
And you never read it. You never read any of this because when they made you sign all this is when you were sick as a dog in the hospital.
Yeah, my eyes were all but swollen shut. They kept the lights turned out in the room. So now they did say, you know, because when I was in the interrogation room at OSI headquarters, and I didn't know this was going to happen, and they spring this on me, and the Special Agent Gregory says, you know, you're going to be hypnotized today, right? And we're going to ask you some questions. Maybe we can clear this up, son. And I said, why? I don't. And he's, yeah, well, they're going to give you some medication. It'll help you relax and remember things. And I said, but sir, why? And he went ballistic, and he pulled out a consent form that I'd signed, and he slammed it down on the desk in front of me, and he put his finger on my signature, and he said, that's all the why I need, son. And I said, well, sir, and he says, oh, you want to withdraw your consent? You can do that. Nobody's going to put a gun to your head. You don't have to do any of this. I can tear these papers up for you right now, and we'll just see you at the court-martial. Would that be all right with you? Is that what you'd like, Sergeant? And I'm 22. I'm dumb. I don't have the benefit of a law degree, and or world knowledge. I mean, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm scared to death. Absolutely scared to death. And I felt that if I didn't cooperate, it would appear that I was trying to hide something, which really I was trying to hide something. You know, I didn't want to tell them I saw a UFO as big as a 5-story office building.
Right.
You know? I was afraid they'd lock me up in the insane ward.
So, like I said, we covered it the last show, but during the hypnosis session, we'll get into all that. I do want to get into more, because I think last time we really talked about the whole procedure and some of the stuff you saw. I really want to talk about more what you remember when you were on inside that ship. But the key to that why I covered it last time was that the guy who was hypnotizing you seemed to be a specialist, in my opinion. The way that he knew what he was looking for from you. He knew about aliens. He knew about abductions. He was right on track to know what he was looking for, and he was taking you right to it during the hypnosis.
Absolutely. It was incredible. I mean, it was, and this guy, you know, I had experience with military officers, obviously, and this guy walked into the room. He had on oak leaves. He was a major, so he had insignia of rank on, but he had no name tag, which was very unusual. And he had his little shaving kit that had the hypodermic syringe and the medication. But he didn't carry himself at all like a military officer. He carried himself like a priest or like a therapist, you know. And he sits down, he pulls up a chair next to me, and he shakes my hand, and he says, "Sergeant Lovelace, it's so nice to finally meet you. I'm Major Brownfield." And he says, and he's holding my hand all this time, and he says, "Now, for purposes of just for today's little exercise, would you call me Brad? That is my name." And
why do I doubt that, Brad?
Oh, it was just creepy. Just creepy.
That was the word I was just going to say.
Oh, and then I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "No, don't you mean yes, Brad?" And I said, "Yes, Brad." And he says, "And Sergeant Lovelace, for purposes of today's little exercise, may I call you Terry? That is your name." And I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, Brad. Yes. You can call me Terry." And I knew a little bit about hypnosis. My undergraduate degree's in psychology, and I covered hypnosis, and I knew that you couldn't be hypnotized against your will. I mean, I was concerned about the drug, but I knew that I could resist. I mean, I would passively resist, covertly resist, but I could resist the hypnosis.
Right.
The drug I had no control over, but the hypnosis I did. And I cordoned off an area in my head, and I think of it that way, that I partitioned a little area in my head where I played Beatle music, and I played Rolling Stones, and I went through the lyrics, and I did multiplication tables.
I remember in the book you describe, he tells you to go, like, start you out by, like, walking down the stairs, so you walk up the stairs. You do everything opposite of it. What he tells you, to fight him.
Yeah, in your mind, he says, we're going to go down the stairs into the cellar and turn the light on, and, you know, take that first step feeling twice as relaxed. Now take the next step down feeling 10 times more relaxed. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm going the other way. I'm going up the stairwell. And
but the thing is, you did start to remember things in that session, and that's what I want to get into.
There were things there. Well, this all started like this. He said to me, because he knew, and he said to me, he says, "Your friend, you and Toby saw something in the sky, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "And you thought they were stars, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "But they weren't stars at all, were they, Terry?" And I said, "No, Brad, they weren't." And he said, "Who were they, Terry?" And I said, "They were the space people." And I thought, whoa, did that just come out of my mouth? And I was blown away. I could not believe that came out of my mouth. But I could relive this. I was seeing this in my mind play out like a movie. And there was so much that I didn't remember that I guess had been buried in my psyche. And I guess in this process of this faulty hypnosis, all these things were dragged, resurfaced, and moved somehow from my subconscious into my conscious mind. And there were all kinds of things that I never remembered, probably never would have remembered.
Well, one of the things is like, so my interest is, you know, a little bit is that experience. When he took you back, you started to remember the things like what happened when you and Tobias were taken up into the ship.
Yes. A couple things. I remember this, and that is that as massive as this thing was, I can't describe to you how big the interior was. But it was, if it looked big from the outside, it was 10 times as big on the inside. And I don't know how to explain that. It was so big that, you know, I guess you're used to seeing things with the horizon, with the curvature of the earth. But I could see down this long corridor. We were in this big, open cathedral kind of thing, and your vision just carried to a spot in infinity. It was just went down into nothing, and it was because we were on this gigantic flat surface. So it was just strange because it was so big, and there was a carving that that was etched into the stainless steel. And I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking, this is important. I should remember this.
And this is inside the ship. You see a carving, like in a steel.
I did.
Of the ship?
It was on the wall, and I don't know if it was meant to be instructional or
an insignia.
And I thought it was an insignia. It wasn't just decoration. It was like an emblem of some kind. And I showed it to some people, and I was told that the pattern that it had was a fractal pattern. And I don't know if you're familiar with fractals or not. Fractals are in geometry. There's a pattern that's recurrent. It recurs in nature. It's if you cut a head of cabbage in half and you look at it, you'll see this pattern, this specific pattern, and it's called a fractal pattern. And if you look at a leaf and you see the edges of the leaf, it looks haphazard, but then you could multiply that and look at a forest, and then that same fractal pattern would emerge just on a larger scale.
It's like the smaller pieces look like the big piece.
Yes, and it has some type of significance, and I don't know what the significance is, but I was told by someone that's what that was a fractal pattern, and that had significance. And there were also some other people on board this ship that were human beings, like Tobias and I, and they wore tan uniforms, sand-colored tan uniforms. They were young.
You there, Terry? He locked up.
Yeah, there was a.
You still there, Terry?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your screen locked up, but then you also got quiet on the phone end, so I was making sure you're still there.
Yep, I'm still here. I'm locked up on the screen. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Go ahead. Keep
Okay.
talking. It's fine.
Okay. I recall that when I mentioned these guys, these other human beings, and I said to Brad, I said they were crewmen. They had to be crewmen because the one guy was working on a panel doing something, but they completely ignored us. They would not look at us or make eye contact with us or with any of the other people that were on board this ship. And man, when I heard that, there was a lot of shuffling of paper and a lot of commotion that really struck a nerve. And are you still with me? Am I still with you?
No, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. That really struck a nerve. And Brad said to me, he says, okay, Terry, he said, that memory. He said, and he kind of took me through it, did a recap of it, said, now you're not going to remember that, Terry. You're going to forget that.
Yeah.
And he was real. He wanted me to forget. He didn't want me to remember that.
Yeah.
And I was actually hesitant to put that in the book for that reason. Well, a couple reasons, but I did. And the other thing that I saw was there were other people, and this bothers me to this day. There were other people inside that ship, and
not in uniforms.
No, they were citizens. They were just people. They were men, women, and children, and they were like us. They were frozen in place, and I could move my eyes, and my eyes are darting around, and I think I remember. I think I put this in the book. I should. It's important. I'm sure I did. There was a taller being. There were the little gray guys that, by the way, I don't think are even living human or living beings. But there were the little gray guys. But there was a taller being that wasn't gray, but kind of a pasty flesh color, and definitely not human, with large eyes, but not grotesquely so, but jet black. And all I can move is my eyes. And I'm looking, and my eyes are darting all over, and I see this guy. And he's obviously in charge. And as I look at him, by happenstance, he turns, and we locked eyes. And that was one of the craziest experiences, one of the most frightening experiences in my life, because when the moment we made contact, eye contact, this guy was in my head. I mean, he knew me, he knew my wife, he knew my dreams, he knew my secrets, he knew everything about me. And
it terrified you, right?
Terrified, absolutely terrified. And you know what I got back from him was there was nothing behind those eyes but intellect. It was just raw intellect.
No morals or compassion to go with it, probably.
No. You know what the comparison I make is I have a dog. If you have a dog, you pet your dog, you look in his eyes, and your dog radiates back, you can see in his eyes there's love and there's trust, and but he understands the hierarchy. He knows that you're the alpha and he's the dog. And in that exchange, in that moment, I was the dog. And it's frightening to be the dog.
More like the cattle.
Yeah, or the cattle.
That's how I feel about that. Because to me, that the exchange between an owner and his pet is a loving exchange. To me, the description you're giving is he has no feeling about what happens to you at all.
None. But he was the alpha. He wanted to get
that's for sure.
He wanted to get that across. And this is the time when this is happening that I heard a woman screaming, and I heard my buddy screaming, and a woman screaming, and but there were these other people there. And it haunts me to this day what had happened to these people, because their eyes, they can only move their eyes, and their eyes are darting around like insane. They're just darting all over the place. And every single one of them is crying. There are tear tracks down their face on both sides. And you could see the fear in their eyes, and these people were scared to death. And I don't know what happened to those poor people. But,
right. Did they get dropped back off too, or not?
They kicked us out, but I don't know what happened to them. I know that they were in that thing when it went up in the air, and wherever they took them, I don't know. But I'm glad that we didn't go.
But obviously, they were doing a pickup that day in 1977. They were picking a number of people up if they had them on the ship. If they were returning them, they couldn't keep them for long. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you wonder how much of this was prearranged.
I wonder that to this day. I wonder if my buddy hadn't set me up. And it's curious because I had a gentleman, a doctor, and I won't mention his name, come down and spend 3 days with me, actually, and going through this thing. And one of the things he asked me pretty abruptly was, "Do you think your buddy set you up?" And I thought, yeah, maybe so.
Not knowingly.
I mean, I don't think he did. Not knowingly. But in retrospect, I could see he knew where to go. He chose the spot. He chose the time. He chose the place. As we're driving, he's like, make a left here, make a right here. Now, in all fairness, he was the navigator.
Yeah.
Always. So I drove and he navigated. But it just seemed odd. I wanted to camp in the middle of this meadow, and he was insistent. No, we got to park on the edge over here by this tree line. And, had we parked, had we camped where I wanted to camp, we would have been right under that column of light that came down from that thing. And, that couldn't be. So subconsciously, somehow, I think he knew where we should go.
See, like I said, you don't speculate in the book, but it makes I speculate a lot, and I just think about the possibilities of you both being abductees since children. We'll never know that about Tobias if he was, but if you wanted to study a population, you were interested in their nuclear program. I mean, they encourage your abductees to go join the military, and here you both end up on a nuclear base, and then it's time for you to report in. That's what I think.
I think you're probably right. And I think that there's a whole lot of people. I mean, if you want a population, a culture of people that are sworn to secrecy, that, have been raised in that culture of secrecy, that's the military. And, that you respect that, that secrecy. It's your duty as a citizen. And I was conflicted about saying a lot of the things that I said in the book, but just as a citizen of the world, I think I have a bigger duty and bigger responsibility to make this public and tell people that, hey, this stuff is real and this stuff happens to people, and it happened to me, and it might have happened to you. You just
That's why I think your book is so important. Why I having you back on the show for a second time. And last time we didn't take phone calls. This time we are. We do have somebody waiting on the phone line if you're ready to take a phone call.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
All right. Says poor connection. Hopefully we got him there. Are you there with us, Zach?
I am, brother. How you doing?
Hi. Thanks for calling in.
Hello, Zach.
Hey, Ted. Very nice to meet you. I have a question tonight. When you were describing your communication that you had with this entity on board the aircraft that you and your friend were abducted in, you described, just by looking in his eyes, you saw just pure intellect without any emotion or more. Can you just describe a little bit of just what that pure intellect just looked like? What were some of the visuals that you got that described this intellect?
What I got was, and it was all visual. I didn't get anything. I didn't hear any words. But what I got was, I got a vibe from the guy, for lack of better words, that number one, he was in charge, and number two, he was a smart guy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but, he was functioning on a level that was, above, the analogy of the dog. That's why I use that, because I got the vibe from the guy that, he was in control, he was the alpha, but this intellect, it was all business. I mean, it wasn't, it was just all business.
I think you should go with the cattle analogy. I really do.
The cattle is a better analogy.
I think it is, because the way the way that everybody's lined up. I mean, I've been thinking about going vegetarian. The last guest was talking about that, because I mean, you look at cows in a slaughterhouse, and they're trapped there. You see even them crying. I've seen the videos, to convince you not to eat meat. That's what it reminds me of, Terry.
Yeah. A lot of people disagree. I mean, everybody has their own opinion, but out of empathy for animals, I had a real problem eating meat. A lot of people laugh at that, but I'm sorry. And maybe this incident that I went through has something to do with that. But,
you were the cattle there. You got pronged.
Sure enough. I mean, I just have empathy for these poor creatures, and I wonder about, they abduct cattle too.
Yeah, that's the whole cattle mutilation thing. Yeah, that's a big question. Why? Why would they need to do that? But Zach, thank you for calling in. Did you have any other question at all?
Oh no, brother. That was the only question I had. Terry, I love hearing your story, man. Thank you so much for answering my question. And before I go, I just want to say, well, thank you very much for your service.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Zach.
Have a great night, Zach.
Have a good night, y'all.
Still will take phone calls, guys. You can call in 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00 if you got a question for Terry or want to share your own experience. One thing, Terry, I do want to someday do with you, because I heard you have your own radio show you started.
I did start a podcast. Yes, I did.
And you had a friend of mine on, Rick Bunch, who is also a alien abductee. And it was really interesting to hear you two talk, like to compare notes. We need to do like an abductee panel. It's my dream to do a show with getting abductees together on a show to compare those notes and talk about it. We need to do that someday.
Or we do. Rick Bunch, my guy. You know what a great guy. I need to send him an email because he is just a really great guy. But yeah, Rick Bunch. Travis Walton, maybe.
Yeah, that would be a dream. But I got you on here, and I read Fire in the Sky many years ago, and it was good. It was really good. I mean, Travis Walton's experience is incredible. The witnesses, the testimony. I mean, it's one of the most, to me, incredible alien abduction events there are. But it didn't touch me or make me think about my own experiences like your book did.
Yes. Well, thanks. I take that as a compliment. That's kind of what I was hoping for.
Because, well, the difference, too, I don't know. I mean, with Travis is, I think his was a happenstance incident. Like, for you, I think this is something that's been going on all your life. And, the 1977, what makes me, wonder is, are we all? Has it been the same aliens the whole time taking you? Is what I wonder, Terry.
I wonder the same thing. I think the entity that I refer to as Betty, and how I feel about her versus how I felt about that guy in the ship that had no emotion.
Right.
And maybe who knows? Maybe there are dozens of species of aliens, maybe hundreds. Who knows? I mean, Paul Hellyer.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, he's the guy that talk about a credible guy. I mean, here's a guy, former defense minister for the Commonwealth of Canada. Forgive me if that's the wrong word. I think it's the correct word.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And just as credible as they come, with nothing to gain. In his 90s, and I mean, it's just as sharp and as clear as anyone. And he says, yeah, they're here, not just one species, but many. And I read his interview from the Ottawa Herald in 2005, I think.
Yeah.
And he was very candid and said, yeah, hey, they're here. They're here and they've been here. And some are working with the United States government. And, I just, if they're here and they're working with us, I just wish they'd do something other than, weapons programs.
Well, when you're on that ship, you saw humans in uniforms. Maybe not our military uniforms, but they were in uniforms. You said they were gray or tannish, right? And they have the orange insignias on them, too, of some kind, right? If I remember right.
Sand-colored one-piece flight suit with same combat boots I was wearing, Those guys were military. I mean, and
Exactly.
I never heard them speak. But if they did, I bet they'd say, hey, how you doing? I mean, they were human beings. And I think that they were in some covert branch of the military. I really do.
You wonder what happened to those people. I mean, is there a retirement package? Here, your retirement's up. Look at this flashy thingy.
Oh yeah,
right. Right. Remember Men in Black? Tommy Lee Jones goes to retire, and they erase his memory, and he thinks he lived a whole other life as a post office man. Yeah. I mean, what happens to these people that work in these programs? You know, where do they get them from? And you think about all the kids that go missing. Maybe they raise their soldiers. I don't know. There's got to be a way they got to keep this secret, have these people do these incredible jobs, and have them never talk about it.
Look into the flash.
You know, I wonder sometimes if maybe, because when they used to take me as a kid, they would take us into a room, and there were 4 or 5 other kids there, and it was usually always the same kids. And we communicated telepathically. And Sue, or Betty, had blocks. There were toys there, but they were these geometric blocks of different colors. And she had us arrange these blocks in certain patterns and gave us praise whenever we did it the correct way. And I just wonder if that was... I just wonder what that program was all about. What was that? You know, was that?
It sounds like Betty or Sue was your handler as a child. You know, like there was a whole program to run to study children for whatever purposes. But something else changed with that program as you moved into adulthood. You know.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, the number of missing people.
Right. And I was thinking about this today because I see missing kids listed on Facebook all the time.
That's unbelievable. I know David Paulides.
You're right.
Wrote
Missing
that
411.
Missing 411 series. And interestingly, he wrote the 4th book in his series is called The Devil's in the Details. Now, this is curious, and it implies there might be a supernatural component to all of this.
He's never liked to speculate either.
He never liked to speculate, but what he did say was, again, not speculating, but reporting the facts. And the facts are that if you were in a place like I was that had the name Devil in it, and there's like Devil's Den, Devil's Park, Devil's Creek, Devil's Lake, Devil's Tower, on and on and on and on and on, your chances of being abducted or going missing in one of these places is many, many, many fold greater. And that's why he titled the book "The Devil's in the Details." Because
you think these places were named with the word devil in them, maybe as ways of warning us not to go there.
You know, maybe so. You know, when I was researching my book, I got a hold of a woman, and I won't mispronounce the name of her people, but there were two tribes of people down there. I managed to speak with a woman who told me that she was a shaman, and she said that land, that Devil's Den, was cursed land, and it had been cursed forever, and that they showed it measured deference. In other words, they didn't go there unless they had to.
Yeah.
And I just wonder.
Yeah. We're going to go to our last commercial break, and then we'll come back. And phone lines are open, guys. You'll be able to call in 219-230-4444, Skype ID JBland00. Call in. If you've had an experience, please call in. Tell us about it. It's an open place. Nobody judges you here. Or call in and ask Terry a question. All right, guys. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
Don't be alarmed. It's only a laser sword fight. Don't be scared. It's only the Death Star destroying another world. Relax. It's only a movie, and it's all for fun. Director George Lucas and 20th Century Fox present Star Wars. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
At Lombank, We're with you every step of the way.
We sell your dreams.
We're not a soulless, monolithic institution.
We are, but we use nostalgic imagery.
It's walking into your dream home.
You can't really afford it. We'll lend you the money anyway.
It's kids graduating from college.
With pointless degrees riddled with debt.
It's happy picnics on the beach.
There's sewage in the water.
Family portraits with everyone dressed the same.
You look like twats.
Canoeing in the lake.
By the power station.
Catching fireflies in a jar.
And watching them die.
Cheering at high school football games.
The kids are giving each other brain damage.
These are the things our lives are made of.
Interest rates only 33.4%.
Lombank. We're the American bank that truly, more or less, cares.
About profits.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The Science of Crime is back for another season.
The cigarette was hotboxed. He was nervous about something. His orthopedic surgeon records indicate
that he was a deaf woman who plays guitar. Mermaids, multiple wives, threesomes. This is serious.
They're not detectives or scientists, but they act like they are. They're crime scene cops that take matters into their own hands. These guys are so smart, they never have to look anything up.
he was neurotic, with a love of puppies and experimental cooking.
I knew it. It's a partial lesion caused by light to medium tearing of the thoraxal cortex. Obviously, you can tell at a glance by the fingerprint on the mustard bottle. Andrews, my acting sucks ass.
The Science of Crime. It's forensically boring.
From deep space, the seed is planted. Terror grows.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Certificate X. Now showing London Pavilion, Classic Oxford Street.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re.
He gone.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, we've been talking to Terry Lovelace, author of Incident at Devil's Den. He's an alien abductee. He's had some incredible experiences and evidence, in my opinion, to go along with it. And to me, one of the most incredible or credible experiences of a UFO abduction I've ever read in a book. And I encourage you, if you are interested in this subject, to buy Incident at Devil's Den. There's so much more to the story we haven't even touched upon tonight. We're going to get to, there's one more part I really want to make sure we cover. We're going to get into here in just a second. But you can call in. We can take one or two more phone calls tonight at 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00. Call in. If you've had your own experience, I'd love to hear about it. We can keep it short. Or if you have a question for Terry, go ahead and call in. But let's get back to our guests. You still there, Terry?
Right here.
What I want to get into, we've talked about the implant in your knee, it's not there anymore. I want to get into a little bit of that, of how that all went down.
Yes, and that's it's a great story because I was fortunate in that I had someone who was able to, a radiologist who was able to verify that the object that was in my leg was actually in my leg. There were two shots, an oblique shot and then a shot from a different angle. And by comparing those two different shots, he was able to triangulate and determine that the object was a solid object, and it definitely was 1.5 inches deep in the fascia, he calls it, in the muscle tissue of my leg. So I had that documented on the x-ray, and I have his report. And what happened was when I pulled my notes together and I'm writing this book, I'm starting to get, I'm doing everything from an outline, and I'm pulling it all together, and then I wake up in my living room sometime middle of the night, and I'm sitting bolt upright in my chair, and I open my eyes, and I'm wide awake, and I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? And I felt that same feeling of calm and wash over me. And I glanced to the left, and there's the light, the alarm panel's lit, everything's correct. And seated directly across from me is a petite Asian woman wearing these oversized sunglasses. And she has a black wig on. It's on kind of askew. It's on sideways. And this is so incredible to believe. I know that this is just, but bear with me because this is my experience. And the first thing, the woman communicated telepathically. And I thought, my God, I wish she'd take those glasses off. And as soon as I had that thought, she took her glasses off. And I also had the thought that the wig looked ridiculous. And she fired back, and I heard her audibly in my head, just clear as any spoken word, saying, "You don't like my wig? It's the same as it was last time." I don't know when she was referencing. But we engaged in this dialogue, and it's crazy because human beings aren't meant to communicate telepathically. We don't have the mental discipline to do that.
Yeah, I can imagine the problems with telepathy in humans.
I'm sitting across from this woman, and I'm thinking of, here's this, I could maybe ask this woman, is there a supreme being? Is there life after death? All these big questions. And then I'm thinking, all the appropriate things, it's like telling a kid, don't think about elephants. And that's all they can think of is about elephants. And I'm scared to death I'm going to think of something inappropriate. And I can rarely think of things I want to ask her that really had any meaning. But this exchange, I'll make it brief because I got to get to the point.
Yeah, we got a phone call waiting too.
Yep. She said, "Don't write your book." And she said, if you write your book and you try to have these things removed from your legs and analyzed by terrestrial scientists, my host, being her boss, people she works for, will come and take them away. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, I woke up in a lot of pain with bruising and pain in my leg. And I told my wife, I said, they came last night and they got them and they took them. And I went out and was able to find a chiropractor who was kind enough to give me an x-ray. And sure enough, the things from my legs were gone. The computer chip thing was gone. The objects below my knee are still there. But
the wire is, right?
The wire and with the computer chip looking thing, that's all gone.
What you learned was, too, I remember, is that she said both your knees. It was, you only thought of the one for so many years, but she revealed there were in both your knees.
That's right. I had no clue because I'd never had that knee x-rayed.
Right.
So, but they came and got both.
And I remember too in the book, she said they would take it, you wouldn't feel anything, you wouldn't know, but you did. You were like, it was like you were beaten, your legs were beaten up.
Oh my God, I was in terror. Like somebody hit me in the top of my leg with a baseball bat. And the bruising and the injury was at the top of my leg. And that computer chip thing was down low, just above my knee.
But that wire ran up.
That wire ran up. That's why I wish I could have got my hands on the x-rays. Because I know they took x-rays of my legs at a higher vantage point.
Yeah.
Because I'd sure like to see what was up there.
And obviously they didn't want anybody else to see it because you never got it. They stopped it.
Yes. And the chiropractor that was kind enough to get me the x-ray said, not only did they remove it, they removed it without leaving a scar. And I said, well, how was that possible? And he said, it's by some means not known to medical science, because I don't know how they could accomplish that without leaving a scar. But they did leave two little things. They didn't get it off. They left two little pieces of wire, which I thought was an accident. But the chiropractor, who I'm pretty sure is an abductee, the chiropractor calls me up and he says, you know what I think? He says, I think it's nanotechnology. I think what they did was they took out the 1977 model that you had in your leg, and they substituted those two little pieces of wire that probably do the exact same thing. They don't do anything by accident.
Right.
And he was right. They don't.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Well, let's go ahead before we run out of time. I will take this phone call. We got 406 area code on the phone line. Who do we have?
Good evening, Jason. This is Mike, Montana.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hi, Mike.
Pretty good. Good evening, Terry. I believe we've talked a few times. I haven't heard you mention it this evening, but are you still having the issues with keeping the weight on?
Yeah, we didn't get into that at all.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And I do recall. I believe we have talked, Mike. And my health got about the time the book came out, March of last year. My weight dropped dramatically. I got down to 140 and was really dangerously thin. And but I kept drinking these drinks and consuming as much calories as I could. And my weight, I'm happy to say, is up to 160.
That's still light, though, for your height and everything.
Still light. It's still light. Yeah, I need to be at least 15 pounds more, and I'm trying. And I eat as much as I can tolerate. I eat everything.
Yeah, I remember because this was brought up on Heather Wade's show. How many calories a day were you told you had to eat?
I was shooting for 5,000 calories a day.
Jeez.
And I was doing for cardiovascular benefit. I was doing a walk, and I was advised, cut your walk down from 2 miles a day down to, try to make it a mile a day, so you're burning less calories but still getting the benefit.
That's crazy.
But you know what else is crazy was to increase my calorie intake, I ate a lot of sugar, and my blood sugar was spot on. I never had a problem.
Yeah, you think you'd be shooting for diabetes there?
Yes, yeah, but no problems at all. So, but yeah, my health has improved. I am
That's good.
Definitely healthier than I was a year ago.
Well, great question, Mike. Did you have anything else?
You mentioned that nanotechnology before. I just sitting here thinking, have you ever had it scanned with a, one of those multi-frequency scanner type things to kind of detect maybe any kind of frequency maybe?
Oh, he's got one. I know from the documentary you were working on, Terry. Didn't they get a radio wave from your knee?
Yes, that's crazy. That happened. I've never had a scan. I know what you're talking about, Mike, and I'd love to have one. I'd love to have. There's a couple that they can do. But when they were interviewing me, and I was on camera, and I had a microphone on my lapel, and we were just wrapping things up, and the microphone fell off of my lapel and into my lap. And when it did, the sound guy goes, "Whoa!" And he says, and kind of motions for everyone to be still, and he's pressing his hands against his headset so he can hear, and he says, "I'm hearing music." And a few minutes later, a few seconds later, he's like, I'm hearing mariachi music. And he was picking up a radio set. My knee was broadcasting an AM radio station from Mexico.
That's just crazy.
Oh my God. And that's just crazy, but that's all.
Was it AM or FM?
It was AM. Yeah. Mexican radio station.
Thank you for taking my call, Jason, and thank you, Terry, for taking my questions. It's always entertaining. Thank you.
Thank you much. Take care, man.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Great phone call. Great question. Yeah, because I wanted to get into that too about the weight loss. And that started after the implants were removed from your knee or knees.
Actually, no. The weight loss really began when I made the decision to write the book.
Oh, it's just when you made the decision. I mean, honestly, they could just turn it on if they're doing it to you. They could turn it on from wherever, probably.
Yes. And I had some weight to lose too, because I had gone sedentary and I wasn't taking great care of myself, and my weight had crept up. I was a runner all my life until 2005, and then when I quit running and I quit burning those calories, I started packing on weight, and my weight went up to 240 pounds. So. And then I started losing weight. I thought, oh, man, this is great. I'm losing weight. It
reminds me of the Stephen King book and the movie. There's a short story of Thinner.
Yes. Yeah, it was like that. It was, boy, this is great. And then this is maybe going a little too far.
Yeah, people don't go out. I'm sure there's some people out there that'd be like, "Come get me, aliens, Weight Watchers,"
Yeah.
But not recommended. People, not recommended. My wife, I don't know how much you want to get into this before we run out of time. There's been some weird stuff that's happened between me and you, just in our correspondence. There was an incident I'm going to bring up on the show before we run out of time. We talked on the phone one day. And it was like after we got off the phone, and we were talking about some stuff I'm not going to bring up on the show yet, but we were talking about some stuff going on and what you're investigating and all that. And I get off the phone with you, and it's like a half an hour later, and I come walking upstairs because I hear this boom, 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 like the house is shaking. My wife comes into the kitchen as I'm coming upstairs, and she looks at me, "What is going on?" And we're just standing there like, what is that noise? And we're just wondering, and it went on for like 5 minutes, and I finally had enough, and I was looking out windows, but after about 5 minutes, I'm like, that's it, I'm going outside. And as soon as I walk outside, I see these two flashing red lights, and I believe it's a helicopter. It sounded like a helicopter. It was hovering over my house for 5 minutes, really low, because it went just over the trees. I mean, so it had been really low. And me and my wife were like, that's really weird. And I go, well, I was on the phone with Terry Lovelace. And my wife's like, what? I'm like, we had a hospital that's moving locations, and I know they were helicoptering people, but she's like, but it was over the house for like 5 minutes. It's really weird. Yeah. And then I think it was a month later, you email me and tell me about something similar.
Yes, the helicopters. Oh my God. End of November, December 6th, the helicopters were just, becoming a nuisance. And I have on 2 CDs, and I have the originals on my phone for authentication from T-Mobile. I have somewhere around 140 photographs of helicopters.
I've seen some of these. You've sent me some. And I had them here. I don't know if Jeff pulls them up. They're in the Dropbox, Jeff, the pictures of the helicopters. It's really small, but I have a couple I blew up so you can see it's a helicopter.
And I have, out of that 100, I have some images that I think are lens flare that I want to eliminate. But I have a core group of about 30, a good 30 images that will just blow your mind.
Yeah.
Because they are so bizarre. I've got a thing that looks like a top hat. Another thing that looks like a child's old school kid's top, with a little stem on the top of it. I've got saucers and discs and globes I had a helicopter follow me from my home in Garland, Texas, to the VA clinic in Plano. This helicopter was hanging right on top of my car the whole drive down. And I turned off the freeway onto Coit Road to go to the VA. And as I'm driving up this long stretch of Coit Road, this helicopter goes down, turns around, and comes flying back up in my lane of traffic right over me, and goes right over me. And I got pictures of it. It was kind of scary because it was dangerous in traffic, but I got pictures of it, and there was a round thing that looked like about the size of a beach ball, and it was black and metallic, and that thing was accompanying the helicopter.
Wow.
And
see, one of the things I've always wondered, though, Terry, are they really helicopters? I mean, alien technology, honestly, they could make their ships look like anything. That's just one thing I've always wondered about the black helicopters.
I don't think so. And by the way, these aren't black. These are, there are three varieties. There's a twin blade, two blades, a smaller helicopter. Then there's a larger one with three blades. And then there is a definite, it has four blades, much bigger.
Yeah.
Military or very expensive helicopter. I've got a friend who's a former Army helicopter pilot who looked at these and said that two of these are definitely military.
I couldn't tell you what I saw because it was pitch black night. All I saw was two blinking red lights and could hear it, and it just went over the tree line.
Yes. Yes.
But you think then if this is military, they're trying to intimidate you? Because that was my only thought about it. If this is connected to you, it was just a half an hour after we got off the phone. Is that intimidation? Is that the purpose?
You know, I can tell you this. We have some friends from Arlington, Texas, and we don't see them as much as we should. They're good friends, and they came down about early January, and I broke out my CDs and I said, guys, I'm going to show you these pictures of these helicopters. And my buddy is kind of skeptical. At least he was. You know, by picture number 57, he's no longer skeptical. But he calls me up. They left. They went home. He calls me up an hour and a half later and says, you won't believe this. I got helicopters buzzing my house.
Yeah.
He said, I got two of them flying donuts over my house right now. And I could hear it in the background. So I don't know, but you know what I do to it? I have one picture that is a short 3-second clip video that shows a helicopter that morphs into a shadow. And that one image makes me think that, hey, maybe these things aren't really solid helicopters.
Right,
Maybe
that's what I've been saying.
I think you're right. I agree with that. And I can never catch a number. There's never a tail number. There's never an in number like there's supposed to be. You never get any kind of identifiers off of these things. Never.
It's just like the undescript marked cars of the Men in Black, Like, were those really cars, Were those really human beings, the Men in Black? It's like they could shadow themselves and become anything if they have enough technology to travel the distances of space and go mostly undetected. They could probably definitely camouflage their ships to look like anything.
Well, the other thing too is if they are military, obviously the military doesn't want the whole alien contact thing, whatever, to be widespread. If they are military, who knows what kind of,
Well, they got some fast reaction time because it could have only been because I got off the phone with Terry. I'm down in the basement messing with a couple things, but I could have only been down here about 30 minutes before it happened. I wouldn't have stayed down here that much longer than that. And so, I mean, that's some quick reaction time if that was military. I mean, where'd they come from?
Who knows what kind of technology we actually really do have?
I mean, it'd be like, seriously, NSA's listening in on our phone conversation, which I'm sure they do.
Probably so.
But
no question.
Yeah, but I mean, you get what I'm getting at here, Terry. I mean, it's like they don't just have helicopters. Terry's talking to Jason Bland. Let's get a helicopter. I mean, my logical mind just doesn't accept it, but I can't deny what happened.
Yeah. It's like my friends in Arlington. They were just blown away by it. And you know what else has happened to that? And I can't explain this, and my wife can vouch for this. There have been a dozen times that I've stood up and said, I'm going to go outside and take some photographs. I'll go outside and start taking photographs, and the helicopters will show up. Swear to God, they will appear. They'll I can hear them off in the distance, and then they go zoom. They go, flying low and very fast right over the house. And it's not like they're nearby. They intersect directly over my house. I mean, yesterday I was in my front yard. I got my head tilted all the way back, looking straight up in the air. And I saw the underbelly. It was painted white, a gloss white, but there were no numbers on it whatsoever. And the top was tan colored, and this thing was moving. It was flying. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Jason. I think that, maybe some of them are, but I don't believe all of them are.
Just this reaction time. If it had been a few hours later or next day, maybe then I might think, okay, then the military finally said, hey, let's go buzz that Jason guy's house and maybe scare him off on this or something, But it was a half an hour later, that's some reaction time, and they really care. Because I'm not a big show. I mean, if I was like a big host and had a huge audience, then I could see them caring. Like, let's make sure Terry doesn't go on there. But I mean, let's face it, I'm not a big show. I'm small fries, so nobody cares about me. But I was just taken back. My wife is like, you're getting a P.O. box. You're going to stop talking to people. She was not happy.
But the flip side of that is, what if they want you interested?
To confirm it.
Yeah.
It was a confirmation to me, but it was it was like a month later when you emailed me. I didn't tell you. You brought it up to me, and I'm like, oh my God. You brought up the helicopters to me, and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't even tell you about it. I kept it to myself because I'm like, I tried to logically write it off,
Did I send you pictures of my injury?
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't going to touch on that, but I'll just touch on that.
I didn't know you didn't mention it, so I didn't add it to my Dropbox for Jeff to read to show, and I didn't add it because I didn't know if you wanted to share that because it's pretty graphic.
Yeah, I don't want to share. I don't want to share the pictures.
I didn't think so.
But
I've seen them though.
I do want to share.
Yeah.
And
we got 5 minutes. Go for it.
Okay, I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
I went to the hospital. I had swelling in my abdomen like 2 grapefruits, and I went to the hospital and saw a surgeon. They were surgically going to intervene to stop the bleeding, and the guy says, "You've got blunt force trauma. You've been hit by something or been in an automobile accident."
Yeah.
And I said, "I haven't been in anything. I went to bed last night, midnight." And they were insistent, so they kept me 3 days. My discharge diagnosis was blunt force trauma and hemorrhage.
It looks like it, Terry.
I'm black and blue.
It's bad. I've seen the pictures, people. It looks like you've been hit by a car. Something hit you at a high speed.
And I went to bed, I had a little bit of discomfort in my abdomen. I was on the phone with Carrie Cassidy, and went to bed and woke up the next morning, and I'm like, oh my God, take me to the hospital.
Yeah.
I called a friend of mine who's a doctor, who I think you know who I'm talking about, who made contact with me.
Yeah.
And I told him what I had, and he was kind enough. He said, give me the name of the hospital where you're going, and don't go to the VA.
Yeah.
And he called, and they were ready. They were waiting for me. And they treated me very, very well.
Yeah.
So I owe him a big thanks. I can't say his name, but I can certainly.
I'm glad he told you not to go to VA because, in my opinion, Terry, you can't trust them. They could, I'm not saying people that work at the VA you can't trust, but it's the entity itself, because if they're monitoring you and using that program to do it, you're in danger there.
Yes, I think so.
And the people, like I said, I've seen the pictures. He's not lying. And I remember when you sent me the pictures, because I reached out to you. I had a bad feeling. I hadn't heard from you in a while. And I think I emailed you just to check in, because been thinking about you. I hadn't heard from you, and that's when you got back to me.
Timing was perfect.
Yeah. And with all this happened, I was like, "Oh my God!" It was. You showed me the pictures, and I was horrified for you, terrified for you.
Yeah. So
obviously they're not done taking you.
I don't think they're done by a long shot.
No. And I talking to you, I hear the fear, and rightfully so. That it's got to make it hard for you and your wife to go to sleep at night.
It does. It does. It's unnerving.
Yeah.
It's unnerving when at 2:30 in the morning you hear helicopters circling your house. It's like, what do? I grab my pistol and my flashlight. I go outside and shine the flashlight at him. Wave, hi, how you doing?
Give him the finger for me, Terry.
I'll do that.
You should, really. Well,
I do.
Terry, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. We're definitely going to have you again. You're one of my definitely favorite guests to have on the show. And like I said, people, go get Incident at Devil's Den. Even if you have just a slight interest in it, you need your mind opened up that there's something going on to people like Terry, and we need to wake up to it.
Well, I thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure. I enjoy your company, and I appreciate your show. And you cover a lot of good stuff. People need to know it's a weird world.
It's a weird world, but I think stuff that's happening to you is something we need to wake up to, because we need to know what's going on. We need to know, what are the ramifications of alien life here that's secretly taking people against their will. From childhood, yes. There's ramifications and to that, and what's going on that we need to know. And that's why I said, Terry, sometime I'd like to do an alien abductee panel.
I think that's a great.
You'd be the first one on my list for it, and you and Rick Bunch for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's it for the show, guys. Go check out Incident at Devil's Den. You have any other information you want to get out there, Terry, to the audience?
No, just thank you for listening, and I enjoy your show. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. And then next, tell me how to say your friend Bruce. How do you say his last name?
Bruce Solheim.
Solheim. Bruce Solheim is our guest next week. And I've been reading his book. He gave me 2 copies of the 2 different books he's got. I'm reading the first one about his paranormal experience. A lot of paranormal talk, a lot of different rabbit holes we're going to go down next Sunday with him. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you, Terry, for getting me that guest.
Yes, he's the former helicopter pilot. He can tell you about the pictures of the helicopter.
Oh, yeah. All right, Terry, we'll talk again soon. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Don't forget, go to Paranormal Soup's Patreon page. You can become a World Wide Web of Weird member for $1 subscription a month, or for $2 a month, you'll get access to our exclusive content coming soon to the Patreon page only. It helps run the show, helps get us out to all our different sources, like our restreaming to Facebook. We stream to YouTube, and we stream out to the radio. That all costs money, so your donations definitely help, and it'll help us move the show forward. I want to bring us onto the podcast world, too, as well. All right, guys, that's it. See you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Have a great night.
Oh,